Take the Hongxing, for example. The daily cost to keep the train running normally, plus food for over 5,000 people, along with cigarettes, nuts, Coca-Cola, and the stable operation of all its modules, is estimated at around 14,000 units of iron ore per day. In other words, it consumes the equivalent of a level 1 iron mine every single day. Of course, that's assuming we don't have solar panels. This module can offset the vast majority of our daily consumption. Under the current conditions, the train's actual daily operating cost is only about 6,000 units of iron ore. Half an hour later, the enemy detection radar showed a train speeding toward the Hongxing at an incredibly high altitude. Soon, a train consisting only of a short, compact, and refined locomotive stopped in front of the Hongxing, the sonic boom slowly echoing before fading away. Erdan jumped off the train, walked briskly toward the Hongxing, stood below the control room, and looked up at Chun Mang, who was sitting in his chair. Looking a bit puzzled, he said, "Boss Mang, my radar didn't detect any level 1 iron mines nearby. Could it be deep underground? Follow me." Chun Mang laughed out loud, jumped down from the control room, stood next to Erdan, and walked straight toward the door of Car 2 on the Hongxing. "Let me open your eyes to the true foundation of the Hongxing." The next moment, the door to Car 2 opened. Erdan followed him inside, his eyes almost instantly drawn to the 100 heavy machine guns hanging from the ceiling. He froze in place, his eyes filled with bewilderment as he muttered blankly, "Boss Mang, this foundation of yours is honestly a bit terrifying." "To be honest, Boss Mang, are you afraid of ghosts? Do you have trouble sleeping at night, so you installed all of these?" Erdan stood dumbfounded in Car 2 of the Hongxing, staring up at the ceiling densely packed with 100 heavy machine guns, his eyes full of disbelief. This wasn't his first time stepping into the Hongxing, but he remembered clearly that the last time he was here, even though the interior was already incredibly extravagant, there were only 10 guns. Yet this time, the number had directly shot up to 100. He knew very well that this was the internal fire control system module, one of the modules that could be crafted for a level 2 train, something almost every train had. But this module was only green grade. Even if maxed out, each car would only have 3 heavy machine guns on the ceiling, which was more than enough. Don't underestimate just 3 guns. Their main targets weren't monsters, but slaves. In a tight, enclosed space, if those people in coarse clothes actually started a riot, just 1 heavy machine gun would be enough to slaughter them all. With 100 guns like this, isn't the firepower way too excessive? A sudden possibility flashed through Erdan's mind. "Boss Mang, did my old group of slaves come to the Hongxing and cause trouble?" "Not at all," Chun Mang replied with a grin. "The Hongxing has never had a single riot or disturbance. Everyone gets along great and is very obedient." "Makes sense," Erdan nodded. He remembered that when they parted ways, the slaves on the Tsanglong were so excited they were practically going crazy. There was absolutely no way they'd cause trouble. It's just that, if this car has 100 heavy machine guns, then the other cars probably have a similar setup. A total of 15 cars plus the locomotive, just counting the inside alone, that's around 1,600 heavy machine guns. Thinking of this number, Erdan really wanted to flip through history books to see if there had ever been a battle that required such a terrifying scale of firepower. "Wait a minute," Erdan finally snapped out of his shock and asked doubtfully, "Boss Mang, didn't we come here to complete my encounter map quest? Follow me." Chun Mang leaned on his cane and walked toward the spatial portal on the inner wall of Car 2, the place known as the Armor Research Center. Erdan hurriedly followed behind. The moment he pushed the door open and stepped inside, Erdan stared at the ridiculously massive spatial portal in front of him and froze in place. He felt like it was vastly larger than his own spatial portal. Thinking about it, it made sense. If it was Boss Mang, anything was possible. But when he saw the things placed inside the space, he was completely dumbfounded once again. Mechas, hundreds of robots, and all sorts of experimental equipment he couldn't even begin to understand, along with countless materials neatly stacked to one side. He had never seen a single thing in here before. Are these modules that can be crafted when the train upgrades, or are they all blueprints? "Boss Mang, this place must be a top-secret area, right?" Erdan asked hesitantly. "Am I allowed to look?" "Go ahead and look, it's fine." Chun Mang didn't mind at all. He just tapped his cane lightly against a red device nearby and smiled. It's just a little toy, a cosmic receiver. I won't explain the exact principles. It's too complicated to put into words. Simply put, it can synthesize low-grade iron ore, helping you create a level 1 iron mine. Very simple. On the screen of the red device, a progress bar was currently displayed, the number jumping to 67%. Pretty fast. It went up by over 30% in just a moment. Chin-Meng continued. Let's go outside the train and chat for a bit while we wait for it to finish. When it's done, I'll temporarily transfer some of my residents to your train, then you can go mine the ore. That'll complete the quest. A mineral mine created right on the train? Right inside the train. Dan was still reeling from the shock. Yeah. Crisis Valley, outside the Hongxing. Chin-Meng sat on a folding camp chair, quietly admiring the train he had painstakingly built over the past few days, exactly as if he were appreciating a work of art. Boss Meng. Dan sat next to him, letting out a soft sigh of deep emotion. I suddenly feel incredibly lucky that I was able to join the Hongxing. Otherwise, just thinking about my old Songlong having to compete with a train like the Hongxing, the pressure would be suffocating. We're completely out of the same league. It's all right, Chin-Meng chuckled, not saying much. It was a pity that the short man wasn't here. For some reason, Chin-Meng always felt that the emotional value he got from that short man was the highest. Not because the guy was good at flattering, but perhaps simply because it was the first powerful train he had seen since coming to this world. He considered him a senior of sorts, and the shock coming from a senior was truly satisfying. Someday, when he had the chance, he'd find that senior for a chat, once he had made another breakthrough himself. About 10 minutes later, the level 1 iron ore was fully synthesized. In another spatial portal in Car 2, Chin-Meng pointed at the mining area inside. This is the level 1 iron mine. After saying that, he waved his hand. A group of residents who had been waiting outside the car immediately grabbed their pickaxes and charged in, quickly filing into the spatial portal one by one. At this moment, the status of those residents was already set as slaves of the Qinghua travel train under Dan's command. Just then, Dan saw a burly man walking past and stopped him. Aren't you Mao? How are things on the Hongxing? Getting used to life here? The burly man immediately shrank back into the crowd, keeping his head down, a look of misery plain on his face. He had deliberately hidden in the crowd to avoid attention, yet he was still recognized. In the end, he could only bite the bullet, look toward Chin-Meng, and say in a low voice, "Hello, Boss Meng." Then he turned to Dan, hesitating slightly. Dan, cut it out." Chin-Meng burst out laughing and patted the burly man on the shoulder. "His name is Dan, and you're about to call him Sandan. Just call him Boss Dan." Phew. With Boss Meng's order, the burly man finally breathed a sigh of relief. "Hello, Boss Dan." After saying that, he hurriedly followed the crowd, shouldering his pickaxe and diving straight into the spatial portal. So embarrassing, Dan sighed helplessly. "This guy used to be my slave boss. I still have a pretty deep impression of him." "It's fine." Chin-Meng waved his hand. "With so many residents mining a level 1 iron mine, it'll be cleared out in about half a day. Let's go back outside and sit for a bit." "No problem. You go ahead. I'm going to the locomotive to grab something." Chin-Meng returned to the control room alone and looked at the data displayed on the screen. The capacity of this level 1 iron mine was about 10,000 units of iron ore, and the synthesis time was half an hour. Calculated like that, it could synthesize about 480,000 units of iron ore a day. Not bad at all. That guaranteed over 10 million units of iron ore per month. Just then, Xiao AI's voice rang out from the speaker in the control room. "Boss Meng, maybe I really am quite smart. I've got a lead on that experiment you told me to finish. Although I can't synthesize level 5 iron ore in the short term, once the experiment is perfected, it can enhance the receiver's absorption power, which means significantly shortening the iron ore synthesis time." "That's even better." Chin-Meng nodded in satisfaction. "You have to believe in yourself. I've always thought you were brilliant. There are many things you only realize you can do once you actually start doing them." "Oh right, about Mao just now. I kinda like that guy. Raise his benefits to a level 2 resident." "Got it." Afterward, Chin-Meng grabbed a few cigars, some bottles of Coca-Cola, and a few vacuum-sealed bags of spicy roast duck, and headed down. Here. He sat down on the camp chair and handed the bags of roast duck to Dan. Got these a few days ago. They taste pretty good. Give him a try. I'll give it a taste. Dan hurriedly took them with both hands, tore open the packaging, ripped off a piece, and popped it into his mouth. His eyes instantly lit up. Dry, chewy, and super flavorful. This is really good. It's been forever since I had this. Is it spicy? Doesn't feel too spicy. If it's not spicy, eat up. Then I won't hold back, Boss Mang. Don't hold back. Eat as much as you want. Chen Mang leaned back in his chair, took a sip of his ice-cold Coke, and watched Dan devour the food. His eyes narrowed slightly, smiling without saying a word. He wasn't eating. He had trauma from this damn thing. Right then, Dan, having eaten 7 or 8 pieces in a row, vaguely felt something was wrong. He grabbed a bottle of mineral water and took a sip, but didn't think much of it. He continued eating the roast duck in his hand, talking between bites. Boss Mang, let me tell you, these past few days A minute passed. Dan's neck and cheeks were flushed red, sweat beaded on his forehead, and he couldn't stop panting and sticking his tongue out. Didn't you say it wasn't spicy at first? It really wasn't spicy at first. Drink some more water. Meanwhile, inside the level 1 iron mine within the spatial portal in Car 2, Damao was swinging his pickaxe, mining ore, when he suddenly saw a line of text flash across his iris chip. Ding. Resident notification, resident number 4998. You have received Boss Mang's favor. Your resident benefits will be upgraded from level 3 to level 2. Additionally, your level 3 benefit progress will be inherited and retained at level 2. Please keep up the good work. The Hongxing will become a better place because of you. Damao froze on the spot. Even as the text slowly faded, he still couldn't believe it. He hurriedly used his mind to open the notification history, making the text reappear multiple times, reading every single word carefully. Only then did he dare to accept that he had truly been upgraded to level 2 resident benefits. What's more, he hadn't even made any contributions yet, just because of Boss Mang's favor. The next moment, excitement and thrill instantly flooded his mind. Damao leaned on his pickaxe, grinning foolishly as he started counting on his fingers. His level 3 benefit progress had been carried over to level 2. That meant the time it would take him to upgrade to level 1 resident benefits would definitely be significantly shortened. Very soon, he'd be able to earn Hongxing vouchers. Only level 1 residents were qualified to earn Hongxing vouchers. In other words, only when you reached level 1 resident status were you considered truly integrated into the Hongxing. Everything before that was just considered a probation period, albeit a bit more humane than the pre-apocalypse days. There was no such thing as a 7-day trial period where you'd get fired without pay if you weren't a good fit. Here, if you weren't a good fit during probation, there was still after-sales service. Someone would take care of your funeral arrangements, letting you peacefully pass on from this life. Brother Mao, what's up? What are you smiling about? At that moment, a skinny man next to him leaned over, panting. Didn't you want to quickly upgrade to level 1 resident benefits? Hurry up and mine. The others are digging super fast. If you don't hurry, the year will be gone. The mine only has so much. Too many monks, not enough gruel. There's not enough to go around. Damao hesitated for a moment, unsure if he should tell the man. He used to be a slave boss on that Songlong, and this man was considered a trusted aide, but he worried that if he spoke up, what if the guy copied him, ran up to Chen Mang, and deliberately stuttered, Dan, without getting to the point? That would backfire completely. If it was too obvious, what awaited him might not be a ding, Boss Mang's favor, but rather, Boss Mang's punishment. Thinking of this, he immediately made up his mind, shook his head, and smiled. It's nothing. Let's keep digging, hurry up. Then, Damao took a deep breath. While looking at his resident panel, he continued swinging his pickaxe to mine, or, the corners of his mouth uncontrollably curling up into an uncontainable smile. Back on the Songlong, he was a slave boss, so he had some status. But here, he was just an ordinary resident. Yet for some reason, he felt much more comfortable living here, and he had a lot more motivation in his heart. Damao. ID, 4998. Train resident. Position, none. Balance, 0 Hongxing vouchers. Benefits, level 2 resident. Upgrade progress, 23%. Mental power, 11.4. Overall physique, 116. Perhaps it was precisely because of this resident panel that he always felt a much stronger sense of belonging on the Hongxing. This feeling was something that Songlong didn't have. To be more precise, the Hongxing had a sense of mission, rebuilding from the ruins, whereas that Songlong was purely about surviving the apocalypse. The resident benefit upgrade system required mining 10 units of iron ore every day. This was the basic quota. Any iron ore mined beyond that quota would be applied to the resident benefit upgrade progress. Once the progress reached a certain threshold, the benefits would be upgraded. After upgrading to a level 1 resident, the extra iron ore mined would be converted into Hongxing vouchers. Only then would one be qualified to spend at the resident store. Rumor had it that this progress bar didn't exist at first. Boss Meng and Boss AI added it later. With the progress bar, residents could visually see how long it would take until their next upgrade. It created a sense of leveling up like in a video game, making everyone work incredibly hard. To be fair, before the apocalypse, it was almost impossible for such a highly quantified, transparent, and streamlined promotion mechanism to exist. If any company implemented a system like this, how could the employees not work their asses off for it? Damao let his thoughts wander as he continuously swung his pickaxe. In the entire space, there was only the clanging sound of pickaxes striking iron ore. Though uneven, it carried a strange rhythm that was quite soothing to hear. Today, the Hongxing was in a state of rest, organizing the harvest from the past few days, which also served as a day off for the residents. Except for the group of residents mining or in the spatial portal in Car 2, most of the others were doing their own thing. With the train's reforms, the original 4 resident cars, Cars 8, 9, 10, and 11, had been compressed into 2 resident cars, Cars 8 and 9. Car 11, however, had an independent spatial portal. Inside was the habitat of a complete civilization, the Goblin civilization. Daba was the first to buy a house on the train. After buying it, he moved all the goblins in together, directly building a private palace. Besides that spatial portal, Car 11 also housed a resident store. Normally, residents came to this car to shop for goods. This was also the only store on the entire Hongxing. But what was noteworthy was that the number of staff had increased from just 1 person initially to 24 people. 8 people per shift, rotating 3 shifts over 24 hours. The resident store had also expanded from a single refrigerator initially to 4 refrigerators, categorized by different types of goods. Each one was 100 square meters wide, for combined made 400 square meters. With this scale, if it continued to develop, calling it a resident supermarket wouldn't be an exaggeration at all. Each shift of 8 people managed 4 refrigerators, meaning there were only 2 people looking after each section. Car 12 originally had 8 rapid-fire ballistas installed, but by now, all of those ballistas had been dismantled. This car was temporarily used to house the receiving end of the cosmic receiver, while Car 13 was equipped with 4 40-barrel Sanhua Luo rocket launchers. This highly anticipated weapon of mass destruction hadn't even had the chance to show off its power before the earth-shattering missile stole all its thunder. Then, it was further overshadowed by the Doomsday mechanical cannon. In terms of power, it couldn't match the earth-shattering missile. In terms of cost-effectiveness, it couldn't match the Doomsday mechanical cannon. Only under certain special conditions could this firepower module be useful, such as for supplementary fire. Car 14 was where the earth-shattering missile was housed, the ultimate weapon anchoring the Hongxing's arsenal. Car 15 was Uncle Li's livestock car. Moving forward, Car 7 was the guard car, Car 6 was for high-level male talents, and Car 5 was for high-level female talents. Car 4 was the living quarters, housing production lines and storage for daily necessities, like the moldy bread production line, the red bean production line, and many others. Car 3 was the storage car. All the gathered supplies and daily mined iron ore were piled into the refrigerators in this car. Car 2 was the research center, packed with various large-scale production lines, such as the off-road motorcycle production line. The Armor Research Center was also located here. Xiao AI usually spent most of her time in this car. This was the overall layout of the Hongxing, simple and clear. As for Car 10, the old resident car was currently empty and temporarily useless, so Chen Meng had converted it into an entertainment car. Right now, there were only 2 spatial portals here. One portal was theoretically meant for entertainment equipment, but in reality, it was still empty, with nothing set up yet. The other portal was built specifically for Zhang Yiren, called the Film and Television Zone, used for shooting movies. Come on, make sure your pose is right. Imagine you're actually flying. In the Film and Television Zone of Car 10, Zhang Yiren raised his mechanical eye and shouted at the resident suspended in the air, not far away. All right, hold it. Keep holding it. The train had a yellow-grade module called the holographic projector. This module was rarely used. It could create a completely realistic virtual environment, like the mechanical city animation from before. Right now, it was being used for filming. In the shooting area, a girl was suspended in midair by a large drone. Wearing a long dress, she was riding a flying sword, glaring furiously straight ahead, combined with the background generated by the holographic projector. At a glance, it truly looked like a female cultivator flying on her sword. It was incredibly realistic. What a huge production. Lao Zhu, who was taking a stroll through the train, walked in, saw the scene, and sighed in admiration. Great job. Your movies are getting bigger and bigger. That giant screen Boss Mang spent 500,000 to build last time has been sitting in storage ever since it was taken down. Once you finish this movie, that screen can be put to constant use. That drone was exactly what they had acquired 70,000 meters underground. But, Lao Zhu glanced around, I thought you were a screenwriter. Since when did you double as a director? Chief Zhu, Zhang Yiren, still holding up his mechanical eye to record, hurriedly ran over and explained sheepishly. Generally speaking, directors usually know a bit about screenwriting, but screenwriters aren't great at directing. But I happen to know a little, and the results of the last movie weren't bad. The old director decided to assist me, so I took on the role of director too. Chief Zhu, have a seat. Xiaomei, hurry up and pour some tea for Chief Zhu. No need. Lao Zhu clasped his hands behind his back and shook his head. I'm just taking a walk. You guys keep working. Do your best to make a good movie. Oh right, what's the script this time? Same as before. Action and romance. It's different this time. It's more refined, with a stronger focus on the plot. Tell me about it. Bringing up his expertise, Zhang Yiren immediately turned serious. The plot this time leans toward Xinxia. It's basically about a loser protagonist who, after getting off work every day, likes to play an 18+ game. Every day, he relieves his stress by looking at the fairy on his computer screen. Then one day, the fairy in the game suddenly flies out and furiously starts chasing the protagonist. The protagonist goes on a long run for his life, but eventually gets caught. Doesn't sound too bad. And then what? And then the fairy starts relentlessly forcing herself on the protagonist. Lao Zhu fell silent for a moment, then ventured to ask, in your script, what percentage of the movie's runtime is the protagonist relieving his stress? 1/3. The chase sequence. 1/3. The forcing part. 1/3. Then it's still just fucking action and romance, isn't it? Zhang Yiren was stunned. He stared down at the script in his hands for a moment, then muttered, it seems that really is the case. Chief Zhu, let me revise it a bit. Revise it seriously. Even if you have to cater to the masses' tastes aren't that vulgar. Do something more plot-driven, okay? Have you seen Goose Town? Shoot something like that. Wouldn't that be great? Zhang Yiren stood dumbfounded, pointing at his own nose in disbelief. Me? Shoot Goose Town? Can't you? I'll try. After Lao Zhu left, Zhang Yiren looked down at the script in his hands with a complicated expression. Goose Town was a classic pre-apocalyptic movie, holding an unshakable position in cinematic history. And he was just a third-rate screenwriter. Wasn't he being a bit too confident in his own abilities? With his brain, the best he could shoot was something like Aliens versus Nascent Soul Cultivators. Thinking of this, he took a deep breath, tore up the script in his hands, and shouted to the crew around him, wrap it up, wrap it up. We're done shooting for today. I'm going to rewrite the script over the next few days. Xiaomei, where are you running off to? Xiaomei, who was about to step out of the spatial portal, tilted her head and looked back in confusion. Didn't we wrap up? I'm going to entertain clients. You're an actress, not a meat peddler. I know. Can't I have a side hustle? Zhang Yiren waved his hand tiredly, his voice full of helplessness. Go on, I'll go with you. Where is the director going? Red light district. Who are you calling? Call me. I'll give you a discount. Discount my ass. I'm going to ask the residents what they want to watch, just looking for some inspiration. Yeah, this is my plan. Or you could call it my ambition. Outside the Hongxing, Chun Meng leaned back in his camp chair, resting his legs on the chair next to him. Guo Chuchu knelt beside him, quietly massaging his calves. He spaced out for a moment, a cigarette pinched between his fingers. Looking toward the horizon, he lowered his voice and said, "This apocalypse is more dangerous than you and I imagined. The train is our only shield. But relying on just one train, how can we survive this great tribulation? In the future, I want to build the Hongxing into the center of human civilization, maybe even the center of all civilizations. All races friendly to humanity, like the goblins, can come to our Hongxing to trade. I want to turn Hongxing vouchers into a universal currency. By doing that, I can acquire more resources through resource integration. That speed will be vastly faster than mining it myself. Moreover, once I gather everyone, no matter what I want to do or what resource modules I need, I can issue bounties and have them complete it for me." Erdan frowned in deep thought for a long time before speaking up. "I roughly understand your idea, Boss Mang. You don't want to manage them directly, but rather use a form of cooperation to integrate resources and serve your goals. But there are 3 difficulties with that. First, it's very hard to trade between different regions. Without setting up fixed broadcasting stations in advance, even transmitting information is difficult. Second, to integrate so many trains, the Hongxing space might not be enough. Because it requires a massive, unified space, not hundreds of scattered spaces created by refrigerators. Third, the Hongxing must have things that other trains absolutely do not have, meaning absolute scarcity. That's how you elevate the value of Hongxing vouchers and get others to recognize them." "Yeah." Chen Mang leaned back in his chair, stubbed out his cigarette in a Coke can, and said softly, "I've considered all 3 points you mentioned. I basically have plans for the latter 2. Only the first one isn't fully fleshed out yet, but I already have a lead." In his mind, the Neon City was the perfect hub that met these conditions. That city was built specifically for trains. From the roads and the spacing between buildings to the parking lots, everything was designed around trains. Furthermore, the goods in the Neon City stores were extremely scarce, like the memory bank. It's just that he hadn't figured out how to restock them yet. Some of the Hongxing's modules, like the custom clothing production line upgraded to level 1000, could already be considered rare goods. As for the trade issue, since train tunnels could pass through different regions, it proved that connectivity between regions was possible. As long as he figured out the mechanism behind region formation, or could mass-produce entry tickets to the Neon City, the progress of this plan would be accelerated. This was an incredibly distant plan, and he didn't even know if it could actually be realized in the future. But if he could achieve it step by step, and the value of Hongxing vouchers was gradually recognized, then, on the surface, he'd only have one train, but in reality, the power he could mobilize would be a massive army. It's very difficult. Erdan took a deep breath, looking at Chen Mang with admiration. But it sounds truly inspiring, Boss Mang. Honestly, you're the first person I've seen who dares to think this far ahead in the apocalypse. For some reason, I feel like this plan will definitely succeed in the end. So, am I considered a pioneer of this plan? Of course you are, Chun Mang smiled, patting Erdan on the shoulder. You're my test subject and also my #1 train. Besides integrating the power of other trains, I also need some subordinate trains dedicated to carrying out missions for me. Moreover, I think that even though the apocalypse is full of despair and everyone has lost their homeland, as long as we keep striving, maybe one day, we'll rebuild our homeland in the cosmos. The word apocalypse itself doesn't mean death, but reconstruction. That's the true theme of the apocalypse, isn't it? That's right. Erdan looked at Chun Mang with a serious expression. A few days ago, when I was exploring the encounter map, it felt like I was working for you, Boss Mang. But now it's different. I feel like I'm not just working for you, but working for the continuation of all humanity. Boss Mang, your value has been elevated way too high. It's all right. Chen Mang stood up, stretched his muscles, and then smiled. Sit here by yourself for a bit. The iron or over there is almost done being mined. I'm quite curious about what the S-rank quest reward from your encounter map will actually bring. Hope it's useful. After that, Chun Meng wrapped his arm around Gue Chu Chu and walked into the control room. The existence of the sterile glass made it completely impossible for anyone outside to see what was happening in the control room. Chun Meng leaned against the control panel, his index finger lifting Gue Chu Chu's chin. Looking at her slightly trembling eyelashes and red lips, his smile was half teasing, half serious. Missed me? Gue Chu Chu's cheeks flushed slightly. Averting her eyes, she replied in a voice as soft as a mosquito, yes. Winds surged and clouds rolled. Fierce thunder struck directly. An hour later, Chun Meng leaned back in the control room, looking at the module information on the train's control panel. He decided to upgrade a few more modules, such as the solar panels. The solar panel was something he had bought from the mechanical train parts store in the Neon City. It was incredibly expensive, a blue-grade module. Previously, he had spent 110,000 units of iron ore to upgrade it to level 10, gaining 2 super effects. First, it could collect energy even at night, just at a slower rate. Second, excess energy would be converted into energy stones. Every day, this module could offset most of the consumption costs of the other modules on the train, roughly equivalent to about 8,000 units of iron ore per day. Chun Meng immediately spent 4,500,000 units of iron ore, upgrading this module straight to level 100. Because it was a blue module, the resource consumption was obviously a bit higher. The 3 super effects at levels 20, 50, and 100 were all empty, but that didn't matter. What mattered was that the amount of iron ore it could save every day had reached 200,000 units. It was more than enough to cover the train's daily operating costs, and it even left a surplus of about 180,000 units of iron ore each day. Calculating it, it would only take 25 days to break even. After that, it would be pure profit. Not bad. Plus the cosmic receiver. Right now his train didn't need to do anything. The passive income alone reached 660,000 units of iron ore per day. It didn't sound like much, but this was passive income. It could give him a huge sense of security in many situations. Before the apocalypse, why were so many people desperate to create passive income? Wasn't it because a job only paid when you worked, while passive income meant money flowed into your pocket even if you did nothing? Chun Meng glanced at the train's unit panel. The balance still had 3,200,000 units of iron ore. He could stop for now and not spend any more. The 3 level 4 iron mines in the train tunnel had directly pushed the Hongxing's fortune to its peak. Next, he needed to continue mining ore, then head to the mechanical city to see if there was an antidote. Wherever a 7-step snake appears, there's bound to be an antidote within 5 steps. He didn't believe he was the only one facing the dilemma of choosing between the drill and expanding the train cars. Other trains must have encountered this problem too, and since this dilemma only existed in the blue zone must have a corresponding solution. Soon after, half a day passed in the blink of an eye. That iron mine had been completely mined out, and Erdan's encounter quest had concluded smoothly. It was time to part ways, and he had also received the details of his reward. The S-rank difficulty reward was a special item called the Rui Drill Token. Chun Meng looked expressionlessly at the special item in his hand, which resembled a spinning top. The only function of this item was that it allowed the drill module to change size at will. The maximum size couldn't exceed the cross-section of the train, and the minimum size couldn't be smaller than 1 centimeter. It could be considered a low-spec version of size manipulation. He suddenly realized he might have overthought things. He had assumed there would definitely be an antidote within 7 steps, even thinking he'd have to run to the ruins of the mechanical city in the red zone to find it. He never expected the solution to be right here in the white zone. It really was within 7 steps. With this special item, he could perfectly combine it with expanding the train cars. Erdan asked somewhat hesitantly, "Boss Meng, is this item useful to you? The reward seems a bit." He didn't need this thing because he had absolutely no intention of expanding his train. He pursued agility and speed. Even for weapons, a few mechanical cannons were enough. It's very useful. Chun Meng let out a soft breath, tucked the small spinning top into his pocket, and patted Erdan on the shoulder. "Go on. Today you scouted the encounter map of Crisis Valley with me. Tomorrow, you'll soar through the sea of stars with me. Believe in your own talent and luck. You are a born explorer. Erdan didn't say anything. He just gave a firm, heavy nod, then strode toward his frog cruiser train car. Soon, the locomotive took to the air, shooting straight off into the distance. After watching Erdan leave, Chen Meng returned to his train car and placed the item on the control console. Instantly, the item turned into countless motes of light and vanished into the air, completely merging into the control panel. A line of information also appeared on the screen. The Hongxing has loaded the Rui drill token. From now on, the white-grade drill module can change size at will. This is perfect now. After that, he looked toward the train car expansion option. After expanding, how large it became was entirely up to him. The limit was a train car 100 meters wide, 300 meters long, and 100 meters high. Chen Meng pictured the scene in his head. 100 meters high was equivalent to a residential building of about 30 stories. If every train car was at this scale, the thing couldn't be called a train anymore. It would have to be called a land battleship. Maybe it wouldn't be too jarring in space, but on the ground, it would be way too conspicuous. With a train that massive, its speed would definitely plummet. The energy consumed while moving would skyrocket, and there would be many places it simply couldn't go. For example, train tunnels. Although most encounter maps took train mobility into account, like train tunnels with a ceiling height of nearly 100 meters, it was still only nearly 100 meters. It absolutely couldn't accommodate a train of that size. Chen Meng dragged the train car expansion slider to the maximum. The required number of iron ore units instantly appeared, 140 million. What an unfamiliar unit. He quietly dragged the slider a bit to the left. This was the first time he had seen iron ore calculated in millions. It felt so foreign it was unreal. Since when could iron ore be calculated in millions? One person, one pickaxe, in a level 1 iron mine, could only earn about 10 units of iron ore a day. To earn 140 million units, they'd have to work continuously for 14 million days. They'd have to start digging from the Jurassic period, the time of the dinosaurs. He readjusted the train car size, 10 meters wide, 30 meters long, and 10 meters high. The price instantly dropped to 14 million units of iron ore. Yeah, Chen Meng nodded. This time, the price was much more reasonable. A 10-meter-wide train car was enough to install many large modules, meeting usage needs while maintaining the violent aesthetic of the train in motion. Right now, he was still short a bit of iron ore. He just needed to earn a little more to start expanding the train. As for where this missing iron ore would come from, half an hour later, Erdan's voice echoed through the cabin. Master Meng, it's confirmed. The encounter map I received is indeed a long-term one. Any train passing through here can accept it. There are no restrictions, but each train can only take it once. Most encounter maps are like this. A train can only accept it once. It's bound not just to the train, but to the captain as well. For example, back when he was driving the Azure Dragon train, Erdan had entered the Eternal Prison map in the Zombie Basin. Later, even after switching to the Green Frog sightseeing train, he couldn't enter it again. Excellent. Chen Meng nodded in satisfaction. He could infinitely generate level 1 iron mines, creating one every half hour. In other words, this long-term encounter map could completely become his infinite respawn point. Whoever he wanted to complete the S-rank difficulty mission, he could let them complete it. The only question now was whether he should complete the mission multiple times himself to collect enough Drill Rui tokens and sell the items directly. Or directly sell the mining rights for the level 1 iron mines and let other trains come to the island. The two methods seemed similar at first glance, but the profits they brought were entirely different. Not everyone needed the Drill Rui token, but the mysterious reward for completing an S-rank mission was something everyone coveted. Although the first method was more convenient for trading, the second method clearly yielded a much higher profit. Soon after, a pin message appeared on the train radio of the Valley of Peril. Level 10 mechanical train, planetary, selling mining rights for level 1 iron mines. Intact or veins. Clear ownership. 3 mines in total. Available until sold out. Highest bidder wins. In an instant, the train radio exploded with activity. Level 1 iron mines. Are there really level 1 iron mines in the Valley of Peril? I've been here for a long time and never seen one. There probably are. I heard some veterans in the area completed that encounter mission before. It's just that their trains have already moved on to higher level areas. 3 level 1 iron mines right next to each other. He seems to be a level 10 train. Very quickly, someone reached out. Send me the coordinates. If I get there and actually see level 1 iron mines, I'll give you 2 million units of iron ore. Chen Meng replied decisively, but his eyes narrowed slightly. While this trading method brought higher profits, it would also attract some people with malicious intentions. He wasn't afraid. With level 12 armor sitting right here, who would he fear? Even if someone had firepower accessories with level 13 or even level 14 attack intensity, didn't he have his own tricks? As long as he unleashed absolute defense, who would dare say a word? But that wasn't conducive to long-term trading. If he wanted to do business, he had to hold the initiative. At the very least, he needed to make everyone understand that. Even though he was only a level 10 train, he was fully qualified to sit at the table and fight for a piece of the pie. Even if he killed one robber, there would be 2 more, then 3 more. He couldn't kill them all. To do business, he had to establish his dominance. Soon after, Chen Meng didn't send the coordinates privately to that person. Instead, he posted them directly on the pinned message on the train radio. Level 10 mechanical train, planetary. Here are my coordinates. Everyone is welcome to come and verify the truth for themselves. I'm mining right now, can't make it. Otherwise, I'd really want to see how this new level 10 planetary train got the remote trading and radio pinning functions. Why don't I have them? I'm free and just wandering around. I'll go too. If there really are level 1 iron mines. Let's just go take a look first. Let's go. That S-rank encounter mission. I've been drooling over it for ages, just couldn't find a level 1 mine. It was nearing dusk. Chen Meng sat in the cabin, constantly running through backup plans in his head. No one could guarantee a perfect reaction to unexpected situations unless they had rehearsed it countless times in their mind. By now, all the residents had returned to their respective cabins. Xiao AI. Here. Craft a level 1 earth-shattering missile and launch it. Understood. Immediately after, an earth-shattering missile slowly rose from cabin 14. Flames erupted, smoke billowed, and it left the train on a wave of scorching heat, shooting straight into the sky. But in the next second, the missile abruptly changed direction mid-air. It even spun gracefully like it was dancing before falling toward a distant area. Chen Meng narrowed his eyes at the sight. It seemed missiles could also be controlled via the powerful magnet. He just glanced at the energy consumption on the screen. It was a bit high, but that was fine. This trick was meant for intimidation anyway. As long as he could intimidate all the trains that came today, he would hold absolute initiative in the trades. Right then, they're here. Within the enemy detection radar's range, 3 or 4 trains appeared almost simultaneously from different directions, heading toward the planetary train's position. His radar range reached up to 100,000 meters. He truly had the upper hand in anticipating the enemy. The data of the trains quickly appeared on the control panel. Level 11 mechanical train. Highest defense accessory. Level 8 Tycoon Energy Shield. Highest attack accessory. Level 12 Doomsday Mechanical Cannon. No other special accessories. Overall threat assessment, 0. Level 10 Mechanical Train. Highest defense, Level 7 Tycoon Energy Shield. Highest attack, Level 12 Doomsday Mechanical Cannon. Possesses red tier accessory, Spacetime Leap. Activates once a day, can open a portal to any corner of the region. Threat assessment, 0. Level 12 Mechanical Train. Highest defense, Level 10 Star Ring Energy Shield. Highest attack, Level 11 Nebula Main Cannon. No other special accessories. Threat assessment, 0. Level 12 Flesh Train. Chen Meng looked at the string of data on the screen, his expression turning a bit strange. It seemed he had overestimated the other trains. Originally, he thought that if a train had level 13 or 14 attack accessories, he could still handle it with absolute defense. But reality showed that not a single train had firepower reaching that level. These trains couldn't upgrade infinitely. Upgrading a Doomsday Mechanical Cannon to level 14 required a massive amount of Murphy stone, and that stuff wasn't exactly lying around everywhere. Among the red tier accessories a level 10 train could craft, Only the Nebula main cannon could be upgraded to level 14. Red tier accessories could be upgraded to a maximum of level 20 without Murphy's Stone, but this was a large-scale red tier firepower weapon. In a way, its crafting cost was even higher than the earth-shattering missile. Not to mention, this thing could fire continuously. Just the initial crafting alone cost nearly 50,000 units of iron ore. Thinking about it, it seemed he didn't need to prepare that many backup plans after all. He just needed to wait here quietly for some suicidal fool to charge in, kill them in a flash, and establish his trading dominance from there. More and more trains appeared on the radar. The earliest arrivals stopped over 1,000 meters away from the planetary train. Considering it a safe distance, they didn't get any closer. They just watched from the outside, as if waiting for something. As the number of trains increased, the planetary train was completely surrounded. Over 10 trains anchored around, each keeping a certain distance. Occasionally, a few trains that knew each other parked closer together. You can play it like this? Chen Mang sat in his cabin, completely ignoring the encirclement outside. Based on the radar data, not a single train here posed a threat to him. The highest was only a level 12 Nebula main cannon, which still couldn't break his armor. He had level 12 armor. Moreover, quite a few trains were still using Tycoon energy shields. They clearly lacked the funds to upgrade to Star Ring energy shields. This made him rather pessimistic about this trade. It seemed everyone's pockets were truly empty. Could they even afford my iron ore? My plan was to sell one level 1 iron mine for 2 million. 2 million in exchange for an S-rank difficulty mysterious reward. That's not a loss, right? But right now, it felt like these guys would struggle to cough up even 2 million. Everyone was so poor they were stingy. Is the Star Ring energy shield really that expensive? Xiao AI. Yes. If it's a 10-cabin train, how much does it cost to upgrade a Star Ring energy shield from level 1 to level 12? 320 million units of iron ore. Never mind. It's fine. Chen Meng quietly lit a cigarette and turned to look out the window at the trains parked in the distance, observing. This was the second time I'd seen this unit of measurement, and the number was honestly so staggering it was a bit ridiculous. 320 million, and that's just for 10 cabins. If it were 20 cabins, it would take 640 million. Now I finally understood why most trains were short and compact. Many trains only had 4 or 5 cabins. Those with more than 12 could be counted on one hand. In other words, even with just a single locomotive, upgrading the Star Ring energy shield to level 12 would still cost 32 million. That's equivalent to mining 4 level for iron mines. This price was way more expensive than my armor. Back then, using Murphy's Stone to upgrade the Green Frog sightseeing train's armor straight to level 9 only cost a few million units of iron ore. Even upgrading it to level 12 would probably cost less than 10 million, or just a bit over. After all, the level 10 super effect also have the upgrade cost. Upgrading the planetary train's armor from level 10 straight to level 12 only cost me about 20 million. No wonder looking around, there were almost no level 12 Star Ring energy shields. Even the number of trains that had a Star Ring energy shield at all was low. Many trains were still using Tycoon energy shields. Some hadn't even maxed them out, stuck at level 7. Chen Meng sighed softly. I rarely interact with other trains normally. I really had no idea how miserably they were living. I always felt like I was spending too many resources on defense accessories. Sometimes the pressure was so heavy I could barely breathe. I didn't expect that under such conditions, other trains could still survive. It really wasn't easy for them. Especially that train with only a level 7 Tycoon energy shield. I honestly don't understand how they managed to survive in the Valley of Peril. If I only had level 7 armor, let alone the Valley of Peril, I wouldn't even want to step foot in the zombie basin. I always believed that defense accessories had to match the level cap of the region. However strong the monsters in the area were, you needed at least that level of defense. Only then would you feel safe. But others didn't seem to think so. I noticed quite a few trains equipped with a ton of speed-boosting accessories. Their mindset was clearly that as long as they could run away, it didn't matter if they won or not. In peaceful times, this approach was fine. But if they encountered a regional crisis like the zombie volcano, those trains would be completely wiped out with nowhere to run. In the Valley of Peril, you could still run because it intersected with the blue zone, leaving plenty of room to maneuver. The trains out here had basically all expanded their cabins. Compared to upgrading energy shields, expanding train cabins was much cheaper. By expanding the cabins, theoretically, each cabin could equip more accessories. That way, you'd need fewer cabins, making the cost of crafting energy shields more economical. Slaves and production lines could be placed inside spatial portals. But some accessories had to be installed directly on the train, so the train still needed to be large enough or have enough cabins. Shin Meng sat in his cabin, waiting patiently. There still weren't enough trains here. The main character hadn't shown up yet. I looked at the train screen. For some reason, ever since entering the blue zone, all the leaderboards had disappeared. The faction value leaderboard, the super effect count leaderboard, they were all gone. This feeling made everything seem more real. 15 cabins and no expansions? This guy is a total idiot. Inside the level 12 mechanical train, Steel Dragon, a middle-aged man stood in his cabin, carefully observing the planetary train's configuration through binoculars. He sighed in frustration. He had been really looking forward to the planetary train. It could trade remotely and even pin messages on the train radio. These tricks, combined with its tough tone and the S-rank potential train prefix, made him believe the planetary train was definitely no ordinary vessel. Truth be told, he didn't need the level 1 iron mines. He had completed that encounter mission ages ago. He only came out of curiosity to take a look, but the result was a 15-cabin train. How many materials would it cost to upgrade an energy shield for this configuration? It could easily bankrupt 3 level 12 trains. Weren't there so few flesh trains in this area because there were too few monsters? Those flesh trains were all starving to death and had moved to other regions a long time ago. Just then, the middle-aged man narrowed his eyes slightly. He noticed a crimson-red mechanical train slowly approaching from the distance. He knew that train. A notorious train in the Valley of Peril. Rumor had it that back in the low-level zones, this train frequently pulled scams in the markets. It was hunted down and forced to flee into the Valley of Peril. By some stroke of dumb luck, he actually managed to gain a foothold, even upgrading to a level 12 mechanical train with a level 10-star ring energy shield. In the Valley of Peril, he was already considered one of the top-tier trains. There was only one completely crimson train like that in this place. The custom cabin color function had been available since level 2 trains. You could even print the train's name on the cabins, but usually, no one bothered. First, they didn't want to waste resources on completely meaningless things. Second, doing so was way too flashy. Humph. The middle-aged man sneered. This train had a terrible reputation in the Valley of Peril, but thanks to its formidable strength and extreme speed, no one dared to mess with it. It coming here this time probably meant no good, but he narrowed his eyes, a cold glint flashing in them, and quickly sent private messages to his acquaintances on the train radio. Shinjia wasn't the only strong one in the Valley of Peril. Normally, this train relied on its unmatched speed to act incredibly arrogant. Now that it had shown up here, if they could form an encirclement, maybe they could finish it off cleanly right on the spot today. By now, on the wasteland, the number of trains surrounding the planetary train had exceeded 20. Shin Meng sat in his cabin, quietly reviewing the accessory information of each train. I suddenly realized I really should interact more with other trains normally. The information I had was too fragmented. This won't do. I need to build a specialized intelligence train dedicated to going out and scouting the situation. I always thought I wasn't that strong, but after comparing myself to other trains, I realized I was unbelievably powerful. Frankly speaking, if my community were just a bit larger, I feel like I could single-handedly take on all the trains in the Valley of Peril. One against all. Right then, a private message chimed from the train radio. Bro, I'm here. Where are the level 1 iron mines? I don't see them. Are you messing with me? Almost simultaneously, the train's control panel started flashing red, and warning sirens blared. Incoming firepower detected. Estimated impact in 2 seconds. Attack intensity, level 10. Suggested response, ignore. The next second, boom, boom, boom. Hundreds of artillery shells fired simultaneously from the mechanical cannons atop the crimson train in the distance, completely blanketing the planetary train in the blink of an eye. Thick smoke and fire instantly swallowed the entire hull. In that moment, all the surrounding captains were stunned. When the planetary train announced it had claimed 3 level 1 iron mines and even publicized the coordinates, everyone understood one thing clearly. A level 10 mechanical train theoretically had no right to sell these mines. Snatching them was the fastest and most convenient method, but no one wanted to be the first to stick their neck out. Anyone daring to sell them definitely wasn't an idiot. Plus, publicizing the coordinates on the public channel looked like absolute confidence no matter how you sliced it. Therefore, even though they arrived early, they kept waiting for a guinea pig to step up. The guinea pig had arrived, and it was a massive one at that. Shunjia's level 12 mechanical train. The first probing attack was a level 10 doomsday mechanical cannon. This was completely normal. Just as everyone was bracing to see how the planetary train would counterattack, or activate a level 10 energy shield, or unleash some special train ultimate skill, the battle ended. Nothing happened at all. The planetary train seemed to be fast asleep, standing there quietly without any reaction, letting the flames engulf its hull. Xinjia, sitting in his cabin, was also dumbfounded. The button he was about to press ultimately wasn't pressed. Energy shields were supposed to activate automatically upon detecting an attack. Where was the opponent's shield? Could it be that a mere probing attack had taken it down? He had prepared countermeasures, but the opponent didn't react at all. Right then, the smoke and fire gradually cleared. The planetary train reappeared before everyone's eyes, standing there peacefully without a single scratch, as if it had never been attacked at all. The previously quiet train radio was instantly spammed. The surrounding captains continuously expressed their confusion and shock. What the hell is going on? Level 10 armor. Inside the steel dragon train, the middle-aged man stared thoughtfully at the unscathed planetary train. He felt that armor was vastly different from his own train's armor. He hadn't thought of it before, but looking at it now, this entire train's armor was level 10. How much Murphy stone must that have cost? With that much Murphy stone, wouldn't it be better to upgrade a doomsday mechanical cannon? But regardless, if it was level 10 armor, it truly had the right to sit at the table. Chen Meng sat in his cabin and sighed softly. My original intention was to intimidate everyone to establish absolute control over the trade. But the opponents I initially anticipated clearly weren't this weak. I even wanted to pay out of my own pocket to upgrade the enemy detection radars for these guys. Come on, look at my accessory levels. How can you guys not even see the accessory levels of other trains? Thinking of this, I immediately lost the desire to waste any more time. A level 12 mechanical train is decent enough. Let's wrap this up quickly and get straight to the trading process. I still want to expand my train. The next second, a roaring sound erupted from cabin 14 of the planetary train. Flames burst forth as a missile was raised and fired straight into the sky. A missile. The surrounding captains, all paled, immediately steering their trains in the opposite direction of Xinjia to avoid being caught in the crossfire. Only Xinjia stood frozen in place, even somewhat forgetting his original purpose, because everything he encountered today was bizarre beyond comprehension. His train screen displayed attack intensity, level 1. Level 1. Was the screen broken? Did it miss a 0? Soon after, a clear male voice rang out from the planetary train's external speakers. For some reason, this guy's speaker volume was exceptionally loud. Despite the distance and everyone being inside their cabins, they all heard it crystal clear. Gentlemen, allow me to introduce myself. My name is Chen Meng, captain of the planetary train, and the one who invited you all here to trade. For friends who visit, I have fine wine. For wolves that come, I have a hunting rifle. To ensure our trade goes smoothly later, I'll help you clean up some trash first. Right after, everyone finally saw the missile's trajectory clearly. It didn't dive toward Xinjia's train. Instead, it began spinning in place mid-air in an incredibly bizarre pattern, until the trails of black smoke gradually formed a massive character. Mang. It was nearing dusk. The sky bore a cold blue hue, with white clouds distinctly layered. Right above the planetary train, a colossal character made of black smoke and blazing fire hung, suspended in the air. That sight left all the captains present completely dumbfounded. For a moment, no one spoke on the radio. They could only stare blankly at the massive character hanging in the sky. Have I been overworking myself lately? One captain muttered. Am I hallucinating? That's impossible. How can a missile write words in the sky? And such a complex character too. Mang? How the hell did he do that? Not only were the ordinary trains stunned, but even the steel dragon train stood frozen in place, even more shocked than the rest. Those without missile accessories didn't understand how they operated, so they could only stare in bewilderment, some even thinking this was how the accessory was supposed to be used. But he was different. He was an S-rank potential mechanical train. Previously, there was only one in the Valley of Peril, and that was him. Now a second one had appeared, the planetary train. Whether there was a third, he didn't know, because the blue zone had no leaderboards. If an S-rank potential train didn't speak on the radio, he wouldn't be able to recognize it. He recognized that accessory. It was the Great Tao Earth treasure. When he upgraded to an S-rank potential train, he had also randomly received this accessory and used it before. No one understood better than him that this accessory absolutely could not fly in the sky like that. It was a missile, not a calligraphy brush. That thing was practically a Chun-Mang ballistic missile. Inside the planetary train, all the outside visuals were transmitted through mechanical eyes onto the screens in front of all the residents. Everyone's palms were sweating as they watched. Too many trains had shown up, and clearly, none of them came with good intentions. In the classroom, Teacher Chiu looked at the screen and explained to the children. One against many. On the path forward, there are always countless setbacks. Today, the planetary train has once again fallen into a crisis. Dozens of trains are surrounding and stalking us. Master Mang. In the residential area, the novelist hugged his laptop, excitedly clenching his fists and roaring. The planetary train declares war on the steel dragon. The planetary train declares war on the gods. The planetary train declares war on everyone. Even Lao Zhu in the guard cabin was watching the screen while rapidly taking notes on the train's development history. Today, under the siege of many trains, Master Mang used a missile as his brush and fury as his ink. Using the blue sky as his paper, he officially declared his identity to the world, Mang. Riding up to this point, Lao Zhu pondered for a moment, then crossed out the last sentence in his draft. It was a bit too exaggerated. He could embellish, but he couldn't go too far. The entire process happened in the blink of an eye. Before the character Mang in the sky had fully dissipated, the 10 level 20 doomsday mechanical cannons on the planetary train's roof had already locked onto the crimson train in the distance. Ear-piercing shrieks tore through the air as countless shells rained down on that train like a storm of steel in an instant. The dense artillery fire pulled everyone's gaze back to reality. This was the planetary train's counterattack. How would Xinjia respond? Everyone held their breath, waiting. Finally counterattacking, huh? Inside his cabin, Xinjia looked at the shells covering the sky. He casually swiped his hand across the control panel and activated his star ring energy shield. He had tested the opponent once, and the opponent withstood it. Now it was the opponent's turn to test him. Very fair. This was the first time he had participated in such a fair showdown, and he liked it. Inside the cabin, ear-piercing alarms blared frantically, and red warning lights flashed nonstop. Wait. Xinjia suddenly realized something. He turned his head to look back at the control panel. Incoming firepower detected. Estimated impact in 2 seconds. Attack intensity, level 13. Suggested response. I'm dead. Level 13. Xinjia couldn't believe it. He shot up from his chair, screaming at the top of his lungs, but he didn't have time to say another word. He knew very well that his train absolutely couldn't block a level 13 attack. Almost instantly, he grabbed a special item next to him and slammed his hand onto the emergency eject button on the control panel. The sunroof on the cabin ceiling quickly slid open. The exact moment the train was swallowed by countless shells, he was launched out. In a flash, his body was shot thousands of meters into the air, and his parachute deployed reflexively. Xinjia looked despairingly at his train below, now engulfed in scorching heat. It was probably completely finished. He was temporarily alive, but without a train, he probably wouldn't live much longer anyway. Get in here. Before he could even react, he saw 2 giant mechas that had appeared out of nowhere flying up on either side of him. It seemed each of them was even carrying a refrigerator. He only had time to feel his entire body, along with the parachute, being violently stuffed into the refrigerator like a dumpling being wrapped, before his vision went black. Bro, How are your hands so fast? I fly faster, so of course I catch him first. What's wrong with that? Then why do you think Master Mang called both of us out? If you catching him alone is enough, why didn't he just call you? I needed you to fucking escort me. Isn't my mom your mom too? Zhang Er sat angrily in his thunder mecha, glaring at his brother's retreating figure. He had never caught anything floating in midair like that before. He wanted to try that feeling too, wanted to stuff that guy into the fridge with his own hands. But he didn't fly as fast as his brother. As a result, he could only do a lap and return empty-handed. He looked down at the refrigerator in his hands. If only it were a bit bigger, he could chase after his brother and stuff him right in. Just thinking about it pissed him off. Zhang Er glanced at the surrounding trains, pulled out a meat sandwich, shoved the whole thing into his mouth, and chewed fiercely to vent his anger. The door of guard cabin 7 on the planetary train opened. A group led by Bill, riding off-road motorcycles, quickly closed in on the ruined train. They prepared to eliminate any surviving forces and bring back the original residents of that train, completely ignoring the surrounding trains. Everything happened in a split second. So now, the familiar voice rang in everyone's ears again. The control room door of the planetary train opened. A man in a yellow sweater, leaning on a cane, stepped off the train and smiled at the other trains. The clown has been dealt with. I believe we can now begin a pleasant trade. The surrounding captains were all silent. Before coming, they had thought of many possibilities, including the planetary train forcefully displaying its strength, but no one expected it to end so quickly. An instant kill. Chun Mang stepping off the train himself was also a show of sincerity. Everyone knew that a captain's greatest strength came from their train. Voluntarily leaving the train meant their control at this moment was at its lowest. Right then, a train suddenly blew its horn, slowly started up, and moved toward the planetary train. When it was over 100 meters away, a middle-aged man stepped down and walked over alone. Soon after, more and more trains blew their horns in the same manner. This was the signal for a summit. According to the rules, summits were usually attended by vice captains or mercenary leaders. Although there was an unspoken rule that attacking during a summit was strictly forbidden, just in case, most still sent their subordinates while they controlled things remotely via radio. Some people called this practice by a rather fitting name. Kings do not meet kings. It was best for generals not to meet generals, and soldiers not to meet soldiers. Only then would the world be at peace. A summit hosted by the planetary train officially began. The main goal for the majority was still the level 1 iron mines. Clearly, the planetary train had proven it had the right to sit at the table, and was even the one dividing the pie. So the next step could only be fair trading. You are Master Mang? The middle-aged man slightly adjusted his expression, the corner of his eye twitching. After clasping his hands in greeting, he cleared his throat and said, "As a captain, leaving your train in person to host a summit carries no small risk. Rules are meant to be broken." Chun Mang stood still, leaning on his cane, with 3 squad members closely behind him. He smiled at the man and the others approaching. Not everyone strictly follows the rules. Let's wait until everyone is here, then we'll talk. It was just that his hand had never left his cane. With the cane in hand, plus the powerful magnet, and his train right behind him, he had enough confidence to do this. Right then, 2 level 12 mechanical trains slowly approached and stopped next to the steel dragon train. A man rolled down his window, looked at the crimson train billowing black smoke in the distance, then turned to the middle-aged man sitting in the steel dragon train. He frowned and asked, "What happened? Is Shinjia dead?" The captain of the steel dragon train replied with a complex expression, "Not completely dead, but close enough. You guys arrived a bit late. Shinjia has already been dealt with. They didn't need us. The situation is a bit complicated." He let out a breath and continued. "Normally, everyone has high attack and low defense, so they don't engage easily, because it's mutually assured destruction. Moreover, Shinjia relies heavily on speed, but this time he didn't utilize that advantage. Who knows what he was thinking? Maybe he thought the planetary train was just a newcomer to the Valley of Peril and didn't take it seriously. Heh, just like the gangsters of the old days. You slash me once, I slash you back." Shinjia slashed the planetary train once, and the planetary train tanked it. The planetary train slashed him back, and this is what happened to him. The man who came to help stayed silent for a moment, then asked, "So didn't I come for nothing?" The captain of the Steel Dragon train shook his head. "Not necessarily. Although we can't gang up on Xinjia, there's a summit hosted by Master Mang. I find it quite interesting. We can go take a look." The other man asked, "So what level is Master Mang's energy shield?" "I don't know. He didn't activate his shield just now. He took the hit directly with his armor. Level 10 armor. Level 10 armor. Yeah. He probably had some lucky encounter, got his hands on 40 or 50 Murphy stones, and dumped them all into upgrading his armor. What a waste. Using them to upgrade a doomsday mechanical cannon would be much more beneficial." The other man nodded. "True. Let's go. Let's go take a look together." Perhaps because these 3 level 12 mechanical train captains took the lead, more and more other captains thought about it for a moment and then stepped off their trains themselves. In the area near the planetary train, a temporary summit venue was quickly set up by hundreds of residents. Chen Mang sat at the highest seat, looking down at everyone with a serious expression. "Gentlemen, quite a few captains have come in person. I guarantee that in this summit hosted by me, everyone's safety is my responsibility. Please rest assured." He paused for a moment, then continued, "Originally, I didn't plan on hosting a summit. I just wanted to sell some things. But with things developing to this point, although it's not exactly what I initially planned, it's still a good direction. Since it's a summit, you gentlemen can lay out your goods and your needs. I have level 1 iron mines. Whoever needs them, come directly to ask for the price." As soon as he finished speaking, the captains and mercenaries immediately started conversing with each other. Even though they didn't originally come for a summit, since they were already here, it didn't matter. The summit had begun, and it was the first one hosted by Chen Mang. Quite a few captains started getting acquainted and chatting. The atmosphere gradually livened up. Zhang Yi and Zhang Er wore sunglasses they got from who knows where, hands clasped in front of them, standing on either side in front of Chen Mang with cold expressions. They looked like professional bodyguards. They were even holding briefcases. But Chen Mang frowned slightly, glancing back at the planetary train behind him. He had just discovered a problem he had never noticed before. The planetary train had a total of 14 cabins and 1 locomotive. Even though there was farming cabin 15, that was because there was no cabin 1. Cabin 1 was the locomotive. Including the locomotive, the entire planetary train only had 15 cabins. But all this time, armor upgrades had been calculated based on 15 cabins plus 1 locomotive, meaning 16 units. He had mixed up the concepts. Mixing them up was one thing, but why did the armor system upgrade based on 16 cabins? Where did those extra resources go? Xiao AI, the train seems to have a bug again. Check for me. Where did that 16th cabin go? Understood. This was the second time the train had encountered a bug. Last time at the Iron Ridge Wasteland, the energy stones would occasionally deplete a little on their own. Back then, it was explained that it might have been caused by the fluid from the carnivorous spiders, which consumed energy. But this time, it was much more serious. Over the past few days, he had spent quite a bit of iron ore on a 16th cabin that didn't even exist. The 16th cabin vanished? Chen Mang rubbed his forehead wearily. Why am I running into these stupid bugs every day? Just then, 3 middle-aged men walked briskly toward him. The one in the lead, revealing a black dragon tattoo on his arm, laughed heartily and said, "Master Mang, that was a ruthless move. You might not know this, but Xinjia has been throwing his weight around in the Valley of Peril for quite a while now. The 2 brothers behind me were originally called here to gang up on him. I didn't expect Master Mang to deal with him so cleanly. Consider it ridding the Valley of Peril of a menace." Chen Mang didn't reply. He just quietly looked at the black dragon tattoo on the middle-aged man's arm. The middle-aged man noticed Chen Mang's gaze and froze slightly, then hesitantly said, "Master Mang seems to have a prejudice against tattoos? Actually, having a tattoo doesn't necessarily mean someone is a heinous villain. It's just from being young and ignorant." He forced a smile. Who hasn't messed around in their youth? But I see you also have a Mang character tattooed on the back of your hand. Oh. Chen Mang looked down at the Mang character on the back of his left hand, shook his head, and smiled. "This isn't a tattoo. It's a birthmark. I don't have a prejudice against people with tattoos. I was just wondering if you're cold wearing short sleeves in this freezing winter." "Oh, this." The middle-aged man burst into laughter. Master Mang, you really have a sense of humor. It is actually a bit cold, but I like that chilly feeling. The three of us are all captains of level 12 mechanical trains. We came here this time wanting to make your acquaintance, and also to ask about the price of the level 1 iron mines. Have a seat. Chen Meng nodded. It just so happens I have a few questions I'd like to ask as well. The four of them immediately sat around a circular table. In name, these four represented the top factions of the Valley of Peril, but invisibly, Chen Meng was still the center. Among leaders, there was always a gap. The mercenaries of each side stood behind them respectively. The atmosphere was exactly like a multilateral negotiation. The leading middle-aged man glanced at the two burly men standing behind Chen Meng and said, somewhat awkwardly, Master Meng, your two subordinates have incredibly robust physiques. If this were ancient times, they'd definitely be at the level of one man holding off 10,000. Originally, he thought that with the three of them on the same side, plus bringing mercenaries, it would inevitably create a sense of oppression. So on the way here, he kept thinking about how to make the conversation with Chen Meng feel less pressuring. But when they actually sat down, he realized that the ones being oppressed were them. Chen Meng alone was enough to make all three of them feel a heavy pressure, not to mention the two men standing over 2 meters tall, wearing sunglasses, stone-faced, cigars in their mouths, and carrying briefcases. The oppressive aura was practically overflowing. They're all right. Chen Meng smiled and waved his hand. Xiao Fong, standing nearby, immediately smiled, brought over a plate of chestnuts, cigars, and snacks, placed them on the table, and quickly stepped back. Throughout the process, her legs didn't give out and her hands didn't shake, but the moment she turned her back, her face immediately showed the look of someone who had just narrowly escaped death. This was outside the train. Who knew when a gunfight might break out? Without the train's protection, it was very easy to lose your life. Even though she was scared, she couldn't show it. Otherwise, she would make Master Meng lose face. When subordinates perform poorly, it often implies that the superior lacks competence. Through their mental link, Zhang Yi and Zhang Er were rapidly communicating. See? I told you having a cigar in your mouth makes you look more badass. It really does hit different. But bro, I don't know how to smoke. You don't need to smoke it. I asked Brother Bill. Just keep it in your mouth, take a puff occasionally, and blow it out. That's it. Makes sense. But bro, Master Meng and the others look like they're about to smoke cigars. Is it a bit inappropriate for the two of us to smoke while being bodyguards? I remember cigars are for the big bosses. Bodyguards shouldn't smoke them. That sounds right. But we already have them in our mouths. We can't just spit them out now, can we? You gentlemen are all my seniors. Chen Meng took the initiative to speak, lowering his posture. The three of them exchanged glances, feeling even more uneasy. Master Meng was clearly stronger, yet he acted so humble. This made what would happen next even harder to predict. I'll share my thoughts first. From what I know, if you have 10 train cars, upgrading the Star Emperor energy shield from level 1 to level 12 requires 320 million units of iron ore. Do you guys have enough iron ore to upgrade it to level 12? No. The middle-aged man leading them immediately shook his head. The iron ore gathering rate in Crisis Valley is higher than in low-level zones. Partly because this is a blue zone, where level 4 iron ore can be mined. A basic level 4 iron ore mine yields 10 million units of iron ore. He continued, but level 4 iron ore is quite rare. You don't run into it all the time. Most of it is still level 3 iron ore, with each mine giving just over 2 million units. Iron ore is the main resource for upgrading trains. To this day, very few trains in Crisis Valley possess a level 12 Star Emperor energy shield. Furthermore, every train makes different choices. He went on. For example, if you want Mafe stones, you usually have to enter an encounter map, or hope they drop when fighting high-level boss monsters. Some people use Mafe stones to upgrade the Tycoon energy shield. That way, they consume less iron ore while still getting a high-level shield. But the downside is obvious, because Mafe stones aren't always available. Once you upgrade the Tycoon energy shield, you'll still have to replace it with a higher-tier shield later, and the cost will be even greater then. There are also quite a few who use Mafe stones to upgrade the Doomsday mechanical cannon. Master Meng probably knows this too. Although this accessory is only blue tier, Its efficiency is extremely high, especially with its two super effects that have consumption. Using manhwa stones to push this weapon to level 12 basically guarantees you can break the defenses of the strongest monsters in this zone. At the same time, it's enough to threaten the defenses of other trains. This is the choice of the majority of trains right now. While it can't completely block attacks from other trains, it at least poses a certain threat. When ambushed, you won't be left completely defenseless. Even so, a level 12 mechanical cannon, in most situations, even if it breaks through defenses, it's very hard to directly destroy an entire train because the attack intensity still isn't enough. At this point, the middle-aged man paused slightly. His eyes hesitantly glanced at the 10 doomsday mechanical cannons on the roof of the Hongxing Hao behind Chen Mang. Then he continued, I remember Master Shin's train uses a level 10 energy shield. As for Master Mang's 10 doomsday mechanical cannons, they all seem to be upgraded to level 11 or 12. Including the train's armor, that must have consumed quite a lot of manhwa stones. Chen Mang nodded in response, not intending to drag out the topic, just lost in thought. Going by this logic, the majority of trains were actually stripped-down versions, not complete builds at all. Everyone had to cut corners here and there just to scrape together an energy shield. The root cause of it all was still a lack of iron ore. The problem he was facing was exactly the same, a lack of iron ore. The only difference was that his iron ore would never be enough, because he could upgrade infinitely. Even if he were given 1 billion units of iron ore right now, as long as he wanted to spend it, he could blow through it all in the blink of an eye without even upgrading the train itself. The middle-aged man continued, saying that it seemed Chen Mang wasn't short on manhwa stones, as many of his accessories were over-upgraded. Hearing this, Chen Mang narrowed his eyes slightly. This statement revealed way too much information. It proved that Master Mang could directly see the specific accessory configurations of their trains. This was a fatal information advantage, practically crushing the opposition. After a moment of silence, he changed the subject, mentioning that Crisis Valley was divided into 2 zones, the white zone and the red zone. They were separated by a massive ravine running straight through the area, which could only be crossed by flying over with Cloud Rabbit wheels. The white zone was where they currently stood, while the red zone was on the other side of the ravine, containing ruins known as the Mechanical City. There were quite a few fortuitous encounters there. Many trains had obtained manhwa stones from that place in the past. The trains that arrived early in this zone had practically feasted, while latecomers could only pick up the scraps. Right now, there was basically nothing significant left. He mentioned he had been in Crisis Valley for 5 months. Many trains had managed to scavenge some leftovers and indeed found certain opportunities. Chen Mang nodded as he listened, casually picking up a heart-shaped chestnut from the plate and tossing it into his mouth. In a calm tone, he asked, "Does anyone have anything else to add?" An hour later, the meeting ended. The entire process went quite harmoniously, with no conflicts or even arguments. The more stable the order, the easier it is for arguments to break out. In peacetime, people arguing on the street is a common sight, but that's because the environment is safe enough. But in an apocalyptic setting, just try raising your voice. The moment a curse word leaves your lips, before you can even finish the sentence, the other guy has already pulled a life-balancing item out of his pocket. Chen Mang's 5 level 1 iron ore mines had also been completely sold out. Each mine sold for 1.5 million, bringing in a total of 7.5 million units of iron ore. Although he limited the sale to just 5 mines, as long as he wanted to, he definitely still had more on hand. It was just that no one wanted to buy any more at the moment. Clearly, the majority of people still maintained a cautious attitude toward that unknown S-rank reward. No one wanted to spend resources buying something so uncertain. Outside the Hongxing Hao, 5 newly manufactured standard train cars were lined up and ready. Each car was equipped with a level 1 spatial portal, inside of which was a level 1 iron ore mine. The people mining there weren't entirely slaves. To be precise, they were slaves from 2 trains, passengers from 1 train, staff from another, and civilians from yet another. The latter 3 trains belonged to the 3 level 12 mechanical train captains who had just interacted with Chen Mang. This was the first time he had encountered a train that didn't use the concept of slaves, other than his own. Through their conversation, He also learned that in the early days of the apocalypse, things weren't this harsh. Back then, the ecosystem hadn't stabilized. Many survivors treated the train captains like drivers, demanding protection, while refusing to mine at high intensity every day, even bringing up moral and political arguments. Many captains, who were originally just ordinary people, suddenly had to bear the pressure of hundreds of people. Flustered and unsure of how to handle it, they ended up giving in completely. The result was that no one wanted to mine, and the trains gradually headed toward destruction. Under those circumstances, slavery was born. Regardless of gender, everyone was forced to mine. Overseers stood by with whips, and anyone who refused to dig was beaten to death on the spot. Under the absolute dictatorship of the captains, production efficiency skyrocketed. It had to be admitted that after implementing slavery, the number of destroyed trains dropped significantly, and the development speed grew almost exponentially. In a context of scarce resources, coupled with the savage growth of the apocalyptic era, especially when modern civilization suddenly collapsed, the psychological shock was something many people simply couldn't accept. Slavery became the easiest and most effective choice to use. In that situation, all forms of incentives were useless, because no matter how you incentivized them, you couldn't make their lives better than before the apocalypse. Before the apocalypse, they could eat hot pot. So what could you possibly use to motivate them now? Could your train cook hot pot? However, when a train reached level 12, like those 3 level 12 mechanical trains, it was basically considered complete. Accessories like energy shields consumed tens of millions of iron or for just a single upgrade. Meanwhile, how much was a set of clothes worth? How much did a spatial portal cost? Or how much value did a slice of bread hold? When material living conditions became sufficient, slavery gradually withdrew from the stage. The captains started talking about human rights, then transitioned into a feudal system. All survivors became his subjects. As the train captain, he had to protect them, and in return, they had to contribute to the train. From then on, as the survivors' living conditions improved, the way they addressed each other naturally changed. Insulting terms like slave were dropped, replaced by employee, passenger, and similar titles. Inside the captain's cabin of the Hongxing Hao, Chun Mang leaned back in his chair, resting his eyes in silence. He had just had quite a conversation with the other 3 captains. The apocalyptic situation was growing more perilous by the day, and 2 unverified rumors were spreading. First, in a few years, the barrier walls of all zones would shatter, allowing high-level monsters to flood into low-level zones and slaughter everyone. Second, the highest-tier zone, the 7-color zone, was said to be a post-apocalyptic pure land with no monsters, where humanity could rebuild their home. There was no way to verify these rumors, but they did bring a glimmer of hope to many captains. Just then, Xiao Ai's voice suddenly echoed in the cabin. I found it. She had barely spoken when Chun Mang cut her off. Hold on. Don't just speak up out of nowhere from now on. Before you talk, flash the white light in the cabin or give some other signal. Got it. Xiao Ai replied, and Chun Mang nodded. Go on. Xiao Ai reported that she had found the cause of the bug. She had checked the consumption rates of all the train's components over the past few days and discovered a constant, unidentified drain. This drain had existed for a long time, tracing all the way back to their time in Huayuan Teeling. There was a 12-day period where it suddenly vanished, only for the unidentified consumption to reappear afterward. It was just that the drain was so small it barely drew any attention. In total, all the unidentified consumption added up to 392,900 units of iron ore. Digging deeper, she discovered that the missing 16th carriage was named the Behemoth Carriage. This carriage was different from the others. It didn't exist in the form of a regular train car. Every time the 16th carriage was upgraded, it consumed iron ore to feed this behemoth. Since the behemoth was still in its infancy, it would occasionally absorb energy from the train's energy crystals to sustain its life signs. Chun Mang asked, Where is the behemoth? Xiao Ai replied, Right here. She pushed the door open and walked in from outside the control room, her voice shifting from the speakers to her vocal amplifier, while carrying a small, fluffy creature. She said, This is it. It officially appeared on the train during the 14th hour after the Hongxing Hao was established. A behemoth? Chun Mang frowned slightly, staring at the little fur ball in Xiao Ai's hands. It was only about the size of a basketball, completely covered in fluff, looking exactly like a stuffed toy with no visible limbs. He could only vaguely make out a tiny mouth hidden under the fuzz and a pair of tightly shut eyes, as if it were sleeping. It didn't exude the slightest bit of threat. Its pale green color made it look even more like a toy, or perhaps a magnified germ. Xiao Ai nodded seriously, saying she hadn't been able to detect it at first either, but just then, she found records in the experimental data about a special type of carriage called the behemoth carriage. It involved capturing the cub of a star behemoth and raising it as a carriage until it matured, at which point it would possess terrifying power. Some star behemoths fed on entire mineral planets, while others spanned hundreds of thousands of kilometers in length. Absolutely terrifying. A behemoth raised from infancy as a behemoth carriage would be absolutely loyal to the train once it matured. It was a loyalty etched into its bloodline, because it grew up on the train and was fed by the captain. In the behemoth's mind, the captain was its mother, and the train was its home. Xiao Ai concluded that this was an incredibly terrifying strategic weapon. She had searched the entire train and finally found this little guy lying next to the engine in the locomotive. Chenmeng stayed silent, quietly smoking a cigarette. After a long while, he exhaled a long plume of smoke and said, "For now, let's not worry about whether this little guy is actually a star behemoth." What he wanted to know was why the train classified it as a carriage that needed armor upgrades. Did that mean every time he upgraded the armor in the future, he had to upgrade it for this thing too? Xiao Ai nodded in confirmation, tilting her head to look at the fluffy little creature in her hands as she said that was indeed the case. Because even though star behemoths were terrifying, they were incredibly fragile in their infancy, and their growth period was extremely long. The stronger the star behemoth, the longer it took to mature. The experimental data even recorded a star behemoth called the star-devouring dragon, which took 100,000 years to go from infancy to adulthood, because they had to devour massive amounts of core energy for nutrients. And the logic behind the behemoth carriage was to raise a star behemoth like a train car. By actively feeding it core energy, its infancy could be drastically shortened, helping it mature quickly while giving it a certain level of combat power even as a cub, thereby aiding the train's development. Take it right now, for example. It already possessed level 12 defense. It looked soft and fluffy on the outside, but that was actually the condensation of level 12 armor. Chenmeng put out his cigarette, took the fluffy little guy from Xiao Ai, and cradled it in his arms, petting it. The fur was very soft, feeling almost like cat fur. The fuzz was about the length of an index finger, with absolutely no sense of hardness. He frowned, saying he really didn't believe this thing had level 12 defense, and even felt like he could crush it with one hand. Xiao Ai hesitated, replying that the experimental data stated as much. When she picked it up earlier, she had been very careful, afraid of accidentally hurting it. Chenmeng held the little guy, looking closely at the face hidden in the thick fluff. It seemed to still be sleeping. Xiao Ai nodded, confirming that in the early stages, star behemoth cubs usually remained in a deep slumber. Their eating was purely subconscious. They wouldn't actively feed. Right now, providing it with the most basic energy was enough, which was exactly that 392,900 units of iron ore. According to the experimental data, star behemoths were also divided by strength, with a potential grading system of D, C, B, and A. Different grades represented the behemoth's potential. For example, a D-grade potential star behemoth could reach level 30 upon maturity, enough to easily destroy a high-spec level 30 train. The lower the potential, the sooner it would wake up after becoming a behemoth carriage. For instance, a D-grade potential would wake up when the train reached level 3, at which point it would no longer just eat subconsciously. The captain would be forced to actively feed it, and the iron or consumption would skyrocket. Of course, you could also choose not to feed it and just wait for the behemoth to starve to death. A C-grade potential would wake up at level 6, and a B-grade potential at level 9. A flash of surprise crossed Chenmeng's eyes. He weighed the little guy in his hands and said that the train was already level 10, yet it still hadn't woken up. In other words, it was at least an A-grade potential star behemoth. He continued to ponder. Star behemoths soared through the sea of stars. According to Xiao AI, some could swallow mineral planets whole. Some were hundreds of thousands of kilometers long. So, could this little guy eventually swallow an entire mineral planet? With such a tiny mouth, it felt like even. He paused and asked, "Are there any records about this little guy in the experimental data?" Xiao AI shook her head, stating seriously that there weren't. According to the data, star behemoth cubs were incredibly rare. Even D-grade potential ones were hard to come by. The behemoth carriage was a rare type of carriage prepared exclusively for the second-generation elites of the mechanical civilization. Logically speaking, it shouldn't have appeared on this planet. This planet didn't even belong directly to the mechanical civilization. To put it bluntly, it was just a pawn used by the mechanical civilization to fight the insectoid race. The value of everything on this planet combined probably couldn't match this infant star behemoth. After all, this was an A-grade potential star behemoth cub. Once it matured, it would be at least a terrifying level 120 monster. If the entire planet Aquamarine was considered a novice zone, then this infant star behemoth was equivalent to a divine artifact from the main zone. Now Chen Mang understood. He narrowed his eyes, studying the fluffy cub in his hands, already guessing its origin. It came from Master Kuan's train. Back then, after using the earth core furnace to swallow Master Kuan's locomotive, he had conveniently swallowed this little guy too. Now he understood why there was so little iron ore on Master Kuan's train. It had likely all been eaten clean by this little guy. He also understood why he had first noticed the unexplained energy drain. It was because it was subconsciously snacking. Later, probably realizing it was about to be discovered, it stayed quiet for a while before sneaking bites again. He weighed the little guy in his hands. Very light, about 5 caddies, or roughly 2.5 kilograms. This was a skill he'd had since childhood. Just by holding something, he could accurately estimate its weight with almost zero margin of error, as long as it didn't exceed 100 caddies. Above 100 caddies, the error margin would increase, but he had never taken on orders that large anyway. An A-grade potential star behemoth cub. If priced on a universal scale, it would probably be worth more than planet Aquamarine itself. After all, it could grow to level 120 in the future, and he didn't even want to know how many resources it would take to upgrade a train to level 120. But Master Kuan, the first boss he encountered upon arriving in this world. How on earth did a level 2 train have hundreds of slaves and a star behemoth cub? He had killed him too fast back then. Was that guy using some kind of cheat? Like a child of destiny, a protagonist tasked with saving the apocalypse? And he got butchered right at the opening scene. Chen Mang let out a soft breath. If he ever got the chance, he'd definitely light a stick of incense for Master Kuan. He really didn't know what to say about the guy. Not only had he prepared slaves, food, and a small stockpile of resources for him right from the start, he had also secretly paved the way for his early rise. He even provided blueprints for the chainsaw, the makeshift heavy cannon, and other gear, allowing him to possess a certain level of combat power right from level 1, enough to escort him safely through the mid-game. He even delivered something like a star behemoth cub, meaning even his late-game foundation was already set up for him, including his current trusted aides, Lao Zhu and Biaozi, who were also slaves from Master Kuan's batch back then. It truly was a full package service. Even the most premium proxy services in his past life couldn't compare to this. Calling him a second parent wouldn't be an exaggeration. What a good guy. Chen Mang felt a bit emotional as he reached for the GLS pistol in his drawer. This was the item he had received from the captain's console the moment he arrived in this world, and it had helped him quite a bit in the early stages. Even though he no longer used it, he kept it as a memento. Chen Mang pressed the pistol's muzzle against the little guy's head, tilted his head to look at Xiao AI, and asked, "Are you sure it really has level 12 defense? This pistol of mine is only level 1. It won't blow it to pieces with one shot, will it?" Even though Xiao AI sounded very certain, he still needed to confirm if this thing was really as overpowered as she claimed. The best way to test it, of course, was to take a shot and see if it truly had level 12 defense. Xiao AI shook her head firmly, saying she couldn't be sure. The experimental data clearly stated it, but looking at this little guy, she didn't feel like it could withstand a gunshot either. Chen Mang frowned slightly, pausing for a long time before finally pulling the trigger. A crisp bang rang out in the captain's cabin, and the bullet casing hit the floor, bouncing a few times. The little guy in his hand was completely unharmed. Not even its fluff was damaged in the slightest. A flash of surprise crossed Chen Mang's eyes. Did it really have level 12 defense? He immediately stepped off the train, placed the little guy on the ground, locked onto it with the remote control stick, and aimed a doomsday autocannon at it. Xiao AI warned that this leap in testing might be a bit extreme, but if it truly had level 12 defense, it wouldn't die. Chen Mang chose to craft level 11 artillery shells. The next moment, a deafening roar echoed as a barrage of fireworks rained down from the sky. Dozens of artillery shells completely blanketed the area where the little guy lay. Half a minute later, the white smoke cleared, revealing an area riddled with craters. It was a complete mess, yet the little guy lay peacefully in a crater, completely unharmed, still fast asleep. Even its fluff was spotless, without a speck of dust. The armor really couldn't be broken. Chen Mang walked over quickly, picked the little guy up, and inspected it thoroughly before letting out an amazed laugh. Now he could be sure. This little guy truly possessed level 12 defense. It just wasn't clear if it was the level 12 defense of train armor or the level 12 defense of a monster. Level 12 train armor could completely negate level 12 attacks. Only a level 13 attack could break its armor. But a monster's level 12 defense could still potentially be broken by a level 12 attack. That was why he used level 11 shells, not daring to use anything higher for fear of accidentally blowing the little guy to bits. Let's give you a name. Chen Mang cradled the little guy, looking at it fondly, reluctant to let go. He muttered thoughtfully, "Let me think of a good name for you." Xiao AI stood nearby, her face expressionless, but she had already guessed it in her heart. Barring any surprises, it would definitely be Xiao Lu. She understood the captain's naming sense all too well. Pale green all over, let me think. Chen Mang spoke slowly, quoting a few ancient verses. The clear blue sky, a refreshing green to the heart. The rippling emerald waves, the verdant hills and clear waters that delight the eyes. Since ancient times, green has always been associated with vibrant vitality. Xiao AI was slightly taken aback. Was the captain actually going to give it a serious name this time? She suddenly thought, if that was the case, why did he just casually name her Xiao AI back then? She wanted a poetic, high-class name too. In that case, I'll call you Xiao Lu. Sure enough, it was exactly as expected. Xiao AI stood behind Chen Mang, pouting and grumbling internally. Even though the process was a bit different, the result was exactly the same. Those 2 lines of poetry were completely useless. He might as well have just called it Xiao Lu from the start. What did the name Xiao Lu have to do with those 2 verses anyway? Just because they all had the word green in them? She thought he was going to name it Yunyu or something. Green as clouds, green as jade. Wouldn't that sound much better? Very good. Chen Mang was extremely satisfied, chuckling as he held the little guy. He said this little guy was actually quite cute, and from now on, it would be called Xiao Lu. Once the train reached level 12, he really wanted to see what it would look like when it woke up. At least the iron ore spent over the past few days hadn't been wasted. He continued to marvel. According to the mechanical civilization's exchange rates, an A-grade potential behemoth cub like this could probably be traded for 10 neon cities. Xiao AI stood beside him and quietly added that it would be at least 100 cities. Neon cities were rare, but they could still be replicated, as they were basically made of renewable resources. But an A-grade potential star behemoth cub was completely irreplicable. It was incredibly rare, even in the entire universe. She added that she didn't know the maximum level a train could reach, nor did she know the average level of mechanical civilization trains. But a mature star behemoth alone could reach level 120. No matter how you looked at it, it was worthy of being called a cosmic overlord. True. Chen Mang contentedly stroked the little guy in his arms, then sighed. It's just that, what if it grows too big to fit in the carriage later? Even fully expanded, a carriage was only 100 meters tall. Like she said, some star behemoths were hundreds of thousands of kilometers long. How could a train possibly hold that? Xiao AI replied that she wasn't sure either. There were no relevant records in the experimental data. Chen Mang nodded, figuring Xiao Lu probably belonged to a smaller species of behemoth. It didn't look like something that could grow to a terrifying size. But the important thing was that the missing 16th carriage had finally been found. As of now, the Hongxinghao officially possessed 15 carriages and 1 locomotive. Xiao Lu was the 15th carriage, and also the 16th carriage known as the behemoth carriage. It just wouldn't be hitched to the back of the train, but would stay right in the control room. For the time being, this little guy would have to exist as a mascot. After all, it hadn't woken up yet. Let's head back to the train. From now on, Xiao Lu naturally wouldn't sleep in the locomotive anymore, but would move into the warm control room. Out in the wilderness, amidst the wind, Chun Mang and Xiao Ai's voices gradually faded. Chun Mang suddenly remembered something and asked, "When we upgraded the train's armor before, it didn't include this behemoth carriage. It only showed up recently. Does that mean it was already upgraded to a higher level on another train before this?" Xiao Ai thought that was very likely. Before Master Kuen's era, it must have been on another train. Chun Mang nodded, feeling that despite a minor hiccup, things had been resolved perfectly overall. Inside the captain's cabin, Xiao Ai returned to her armor research center, leaving only Chun Mang and Xiao Lu. Very good. Chun Mang looked down and gently tapped the little guy's nose. From now on, you'll be called Xiao Lu. Even though you're fast asleep now, when you wake up, I'll tell you your name. He suddenly asked about the intelligence level of star behemoths. The white light in the control room flashed once before Xiao Ai's voice rang out. She said that generally, star behemoths were associated with brutality, bloodlust, and mindlessness. They basically had no intellect and acted purely on biological instinct. This had nothing to do with their potential. Of course, there were exceptions. It was said that some star behemoths possessed quite high intelligence. But regardless of their intelligence, as long as they were a behemoth carriage, they would be loyal to the captain. It was just that this loyalty was bound by bloodline, not absolute. There was still a possibility of rebellion, or even killing the captain. However, in most cases, as long as they weren't abused, star behemoths wouldn't resort to such extremes. Chun Mang reminded Xiao Ai that she only needed to flash the white light when speaking up suddenly. When he asked a question first, there was no need. In emergencies, she could just warn him directly. Xiao Ai acknowledged each point. Chun Mang then looked down at the fluffy little guy in his arms. Suddenly gaining something like this naturally made him happy, but it was a pity it couldn't be traded. Otherwise, he really would have loved to sell it for iron ore. Just thinking about the price was unimaginable. Moreover, how did an A-grade potential star behemoth cub end up on planet Aquamarine? Star behemoths wouldn't just casually abandon their young. Cubs could usually only be taken by force. No matter how you looked at it, this planet didn't seem capable of snatching a star behemoth cub. Did it fall from the sky? Or was it generated by Master Kuen's daily login cheat? The more he thought about it, the more certain he was that Master Kuen definitely had a cheat, just that he was a bit dense. If he hadn't been so arrogant at the start and rushed down to fight his train, he probably wouldn't have died so miserably. Poor guy, had a cheat but didn't know how to use it. After playing with it for a while, Chun Mang finally placed Xiao Lu on the seat next to him. The little guy didn't even know how to move right now, still lost in a deep slumber. He had checked it all over, but couldn't find any sexual characteristics. It was unclear if it was male or female, looking almost like an indistinguishable androgynous creature. It had no smell, neither stinky nor fragrant, and he couldn't find any excretory organs either. It seemed it didn't need to use the bathroom at all. It was completely round, with only a nose, mouth, and eyes. It didn't even have ears. It looked nothing like a creature that could exist in the real world. "Sleep tight," Chun Mang whispered, then turned to look at the train's control panel. Previously, the train had 3.2 million units of iron ore, plus the 7.5 million gained from selling the level 1 iron mines, and about 700,000 units after deducting costs from selling miscellaneous items like cigarettes and chestnuts. Currently, the train had a total of 11.4 million units of iron ore. Meanwhile, the total iron ore needed to expand the Hongxing Hao was 14 million. He was still a bit short. He had checked carefully this time. The expansion cost was calculated based on 14 carriages plus 1 locomotive, excluding the behemoth carriage, because Xiao Lu didn't need to be expanded. However, the control panel screen still showed that the internal fire control system had a total of 1,600 heavy cannons, meaning the behemoth carriage also had 100 heavy cannons. And the behemoth carriage was exactly Xiao Lu, currently lying on the seat next to him. Chun Mang tilted his head slightly, looking at Xiao Lu with a strange expression. Did this little guy really have 100 heavy cannons inside its stomach? By that logic, did it have chainsaws too? If his guess was right, the behemoth carriage wasn't just meant to shorten the behemoth's growth period. It was very likely also meant to equip the behemoth with firepower accessories. Who knows, maybe in the future, when the behemoth matured, it could even mount massive firepower accessories on its back, like a nebula main cannon. Thinking of this, he grew even more eager to upgrade the train to level 12, just to see what this little guy would look like when it woke up. Chenmeng looked at the requirements to upgrade the train to level 11. The upgrade required all 3 mandatory vehicle accessories to be fully crafted. It also required consuming 20,000 units of level 3 iron ore, which was equivalent to 2 million units of standard iron ore. Additionally, it required the total level of all accessories in the carriages to exceed 200 and to possess 10 super effects. These conditions weren't too harsh. He hesitated for a moment. Should he focus all his efforts on upgrading the train to level 12 first, or expand the train and figure the rest out later? The people who attended the meeting this time had basically all expanded their trains. But his iron ore still wasn't enough. He only had 11.4 million units right now. If only he had a little more, that would be great. Just then, a private message suddenly came through the train's radio. The sender was a captain who had attended the previous meeting, saying he hadn't brought enough iron ore at the time. Now he had gathered 1.5 million units and was asking if his level 1 iron mine was still for sale. Chenmeng replied that it was, and the coordinates hadn't changed. The other party immediately said he was on his way. He frowned, finding it a bit strange. He didn't know if the guy was really coming to pay or coming to cause trouble, but he didn't care too much. He had already made up his mind to temporarily put off expanding the train and upgrading its overall level. The most important thing right now was to upgrade the train's armor by another level. Even though this was a blue zone and the strongest monsters were only level 12, the current armor was perfectly fine against monsters, but it still wasn't safe against other trains. The cost for those other trains to upgrade their firepower accessories was much lower. According to the captain of the Steel Dragon, several trains already possessed level 13 firepower weapons. Having armor 1 level higher was what truly provided a sense of security. Even if level 13 firepower weapons could break his armor, they wouldn't instantly destroy the train. His armor could still hold out for a while, but that sense of security couldn't compare to being completely immune to armor penetration. Upgrading the armor from level 12 to level 13 cost 2 million units of iron ore per carriage. Upgrading the armor for 15 carriages plus 1 locomotive would require a total of 32 million units of iron ore. Even with the consumption halved, it still required 16 million units of iron ore. Still not enough. The corner of Chenmeng's mouth twitched slightly. He glanced out the window at the trains mining the level 1 iron ore for him. Once those guys finished digging, he definitely had to hurry and find a level 4 iron mine. He really didn't have enough iron ore. If only 100 million units of iron ore would fall from the sky right now, that would be amazing. While waiting patiently, a completely crazy idea suddenly popped into his head. How was iron ore formed? It was formed by core energy leaking from deep within the planet, condensing on the surface and materializing. Star behemoths soaring through the universe fed on the core energy escaping from planets. The insectoid race's so-called fierce attacks were also to fight for core energy. Cola, cigarettes, steamed buns. Everything was formed from core energy. Ultimately, everything in this world was core energy. That was exactly what all living beings were fighting over. And where was the core energy? In the Earth's core. If he just drilled straight down to the core of planet Aquamarine and mined the core energy directly, wouldn't that solve the problem once and for all? Other trains had no way to directly convert core energy into iron ore. They didn't have the accessories or the capability, but he did. He had the cosmic receiver. This thing could already convert scattered core energy in the universe into iron ore. So it could definitely convert the core energy deep within the Earth's core into iron ore too, right? Moreover, the conversion speed would definitely be much faster than on the surface. He immediately shared this genius idea with Xiao AI, asking her to use data to evaluate its feasibility, getting straight to the core of the matter. Very quickly, Xiao AI's voice rang out in the captain's cabin. She said this was indeed a brilliant idea, but some data needed to be supplemented based on the materials she had gathered from the library in the city ruins earlier. She stated that the radius of planet Aquamarine was 28,371 kilometers, or 28,371,000 meters. The deeper they went underground, the slower the train would move due to the solidity of the strata. Based on the speed decay data from the surface down to 70,000 meters, it could be deduced that the train could only drill a maximum of about 280,000 meters into the ground. By that calculation, they would still need to go another 371,000 meters to reach the core of planet Aquamarine and harvest the core energy. Chun Mang remained expressionless, staying silent for a moment before saying, 28.371 million meters, minus 280,000 meters, and you're telling me there's 371,000 meters left? That was a humorous joke, Captain. Not funny at all. Understood, I will continue to learn. The genius plan was scrapped the moment it was born. A level 100 drill could only pierce about 280,000 meters into the ground at most, and who knew how long that would take? The speed would continuously drop. To reach the center of the Earth, even level 1000 might not be enough. And this was only considering the drill bit, not factoring in other elements, like whether the train could withstand such terrifying pressure or the temperature at the Earth's core. This idea could basically be vetoed. Since that was the case, he could only wait for this transaction to finish, then go look for a level 4 iron mine. Or follow the train tunnel to the mechanical city and see what happens. Who knows? There might be some fortuitous encounter waiting for him. Sitting inside a train parked next to the Hongxing Hao, the steel dragon, the man with the black dragon tattoo on his arm was slowly stroking his tattoo. He looked at the Hongxing Hao in the distance with a complex gaze. Having superficial ties, but talking too deeply was a major taboo. Boss Mang had many things he hadn't clearly revealed to them, and naturally, they wouldn't easily disclose their own secrets either. For example, the tattoo on his arm. It wasn't actually tattooed before the apocalypse, but appeared after, belonging to a special item. This was his most closely guarded secret, something he obviously couldn't tell anyone. The fact that he was mining level 1 iron or was actually just a cover. His S-rank encounter quest had been completed long ago. He had already received the reward, something he had vaguely hinted at to Boss Mang. The reason he still bought the mine was purely to show some support. After all, seeing that not many people were buying, he was worried Boss Mang would lose face, so he bought one. Just now, he had seen with his own eyes Boss Mang carrying a fluffy stuffed animal off the train and setting it aside. Then, an autocannon fired a continuous barrage at it, yet that stuffed animal remained completely unscathed. You didn't even have to think about it to know it was definitely another special item. It felt like the Hongxing Hao was hiding a lot of things, far more than what he had. At the very least, the white gloves, the walking cane in his hand, and the badge on Boss Mang's chest earlier were definitely all special items. He felt like he was about to suffocate from all these special items. How many encounter maps did one have to go through to gather so many things? Did he do nothing but dig for treasure all day? Furthermore, where did the method to create this level 1 iron mine come from? Was it the effect of some accessory? If he could create level 1 iron mines, didn't that mean he could create higher level ones too? A strange light flashed in his eyes. To be honest, if it weren't for his rationality holding him back, he really wanted to try a sneak attack. To see if he could kill Boss Mang in an instant, and then take over the Hongxing Hao. But reason told him that if he really made a move, the one to die would very likely be himself. At the same time, in the train's control room, Chen Mang narrowed his eyes slightly, looking at the message still pinned on the radio. Level 10 mechanical train, Hongxing Hao, selling mining rights for a level 1 iron mine. Fully intact. Clear ownership, only 3 mines available. Once they're gone, they're gone. Highest bidder gets them. There was actually nothing wrong with this sentence. There was nothing wrong with his business either, just that there weren't many customers. At the time, he had come up with 2 plans. One was to directly sell the special item, the Rui drilling permit. That would lock in a specific group of customers. Those who needed it would definitely buy it, but most people didn't. The second was to directly sell the unknown S-rank quest reward, using the S-rank difficulty as a guarantee to sell expectations. That would attract more people. But just now, he had come up with a third idea. The inspiration came from the requirements to upgrade the train to level 11. He remembered that one of the conditions to reach level 10 was to complete a B-rank difficulty quest. Any quest would do, whether it was from an encounter map or a class advancement quest. This condition alone had caused many people to get stuck. After all, B-rank quests weren't easy to complete. A level 19 train was a boundary, blocking all trains with high levels but poor potential. His third idea was to create demand. Who could guarantee that in the future, when upgrading the train, a condition requiring the completion of an S-rank difficulty quest wouldn't appear? With the previous precedent, this was entirely possible. And S-rank difficulty quests, whether in encounter maps or class advancements, were extremely difficult. Very few people could complete them on their own. But here, it was different. Just by spending 1.5 million units of iron ore, you could complete an S-rank difficulty quest, laying the foundation for the future and avoiding getting stuck later on. Plus, you could also receive the reward from an S-rank encounter quest. Wasn't this incredibly tempting? He immediately reposted the advertisement, and the effect was instant. In just a few short minutes, 4 or 5 more captains messaged him, saying they were on their way to the coordinates. But the sold-out frenzy he had imagined still didn't happen. Chen Meng frowned slightly. Was it not worth it? 1.5 million units of iron ore in exchange for an unknown S-rank encounter quest and a guarantee for the future. Wasn't that worth it? If it were him, he would definitely buy it. A few minutes later, he smoked a cigarette in silence, finally understanding. The demand was there, but the market wasn't big enough. That encounter quest was a public one. Each train could only accept it once. Many trains had already completed it long ago. Even if they wanted to buy it, they no longer had the qualifications to do so. Oh well, let it be. Waiting for these 4 or 5 captains to come and pay, selling about 10 million units of iron ore was already considered not bad. 10 million units of iron ore was actually not a small amount. Before coming to Crisis Valley, that amount of resources would have basically been enough to crush him. It was just that his current demand was too high. He needed iron ore for too many things, and it really was a bit lacking. Level 12 armor still didn't give him enough sense of security. Level 13 armor would be much more solid. A day later, the Hongxinghao was once again speeding across the wilderness of Crisis Valley. The transactions were complete. The 5 captains who arrived later had all finished their quests, bringing in another 7.5 million units of iron ore. After the handover, he parted ways with them, continuing to speed across the Crisis Valley wilderness in search of a level 4 iron mine. He had secretly started looking down on level 3 iron mines. Only if he truly couldn't find a level 4 iron mine would he consider a level 3 one. After all, the yield of a level 3 iron mine was basically only about 2 million units. 2 million units of iron ore, for his train, was just a drop in the bucket. It wasn't enough to quench his thirst, let alone fill his stomach. The train entered autopilot mode. The sky had turned pitch black. In the night, the Hongxinghao sped on relentlessly, while Chun Meng leaned back in his chair, resting his feet on the control console, staring intently at the inventory list in his hand. Lao Zhu stood to the side, reporting, "Boss Meng, this is all the materials we got from Master Shin's train." Chun Meng looked closely at the list. 5.634 million units of iron ore, 3.58 million units of copper ore, 120,000 units of wood, various living supplies, and over 1,200 survivors. That was quite a lot of iron ore. Combined with this batch of iron ore and the amount gathered from the solar panels yesterday, the train now had a total of 25.01 million units of iron ore. He was finally back over the 20 million mark. With this amount of iron ore, he could get quite a few things done. Previously, he had used level 13 shells to attack Master Shin's train. Level 13 shells were not cheap. A level 9 shell for the Doomsday autocannon cost 700 units of copper ore, level 10 was 1,000. Level 11 was 1,500, level 12 was 2,000, and level 13 went all the way up to 2,500 units of copper ore. Just a few shells could deplete an entire level 1 copper mine. But he had the super effect that reduced consumption 3 times. Calculating it out, a level 13 shell only cost him about 312.5 units of copper ore, which was completely acceptable. His Doomsday autocannon had reached level 20 and had 3 super effects, whereas most other people only had 2. If they upgraded to level 13, the cost of each shell would be about 625 units of copper ore, which still wasn't considered too expensive. This was exactly why so many people were willing to use manhwa stones to upgrade their Doomsday autocannons. Out of all the firepower accessories, the Doomsday autocannon might not be the strongest, but it was absolutely the one that the vast majority of people could use. What makes a good product? A product that the common people can use is a good product. In that battle, he had fired over 2,000 shells, directly burning through 750,000 units of copper ore. But he had to fight with overwhelming momentum. That wasn't the time to be stingy. In return, he raked in 3.58 million units of copper ore. Not only did he make his money back, but he also turned a hefty profit. In this era, being frugal was naturally good, but dying with money still left unspent, now that was a true tragedy. As of now, the total resources on the train's control panel were quite abundant: 25.01 million units of iron ore, 4.65 million units of copper ore, 2.57 million units of wood, 4.48 million units of crimson core rock. The only regret was that there were no manhwa stones or blueprints on Master Shin's train. It seemed that guy wasn't stupid either. He used those kinds of items immediately instead of hoarding them, leaving Chun Mang with nothing to salvage in that regard. Originally, there were a few special items, Lao Zhu explained. But before he rushed out, he took all the special items on him and blew himself up in the fridge, destroying everything. Is he dead? No, he escaped. Uncle Lee asked for this guy, saying he wanted to use him for experiments. It's for that zombie monster cage I mentioned to you last time, Boss Mang. Shin Mang narrowed his eyes slightly. Lao Zhu had briefly mentioned this matter before. He needed to pay more attention to Uncle Lee's project. If he could really make that thing, and the refresh rate wasn't low, he would give him level 1 high-tier talent treatment. A flash of surprise crossed Lao Zhu's eyes, and he asked reflexively, "Is that thing really that useful to the train?" Currently, only 3 people on the train enjoyed level 1 high-tier talent treatment: him, Biaozi, and Meng Duo. Lao Zhu had always felt that Uncle Lee's idea was impressive, but he didn't expect it to be worth this much. Previously, Meng Duo had brought back a massive amount of iron ore and had the potential to earn much more in the future. That was why Boss Mang gave him level 1 high-tier talent treatment. Is this zombie monster cage really worth it? Very useful. Chun Mang looked at Lao Zhu and smiled. But the chances of making it aren't high. The formation of zombies is more complex than he thinks. Shall AI later go tell Uncle Lee about our findings in the lab? Yes. Zombies were divided into 3 types. One was the swarm-type zombie, one was the core energy form zombie, and one was the ancient zombie. The first 2 were more common, while the last one was extremely rare and usually appeared as a boss. The first type wasn't worth mentioning and had almost no research value. But if the core energy form zombies could be mass-produced, the implications would be completely different. What would it be equivalent to? It would be equivalent to saying that if this zombie monster cage could be equipped with a juicer and a converter, it would be no different from a cosmic receiver. Sucking core energy from the universe, or squeezing core energy from a zombie's body. Was there really any difference in essence? No difference at all. Both involved 3 steps: absorption, compression, and conversion. It was just that this type of core energy formed zombie, despite having gender distinctions, strictly speaking, couldn't even be considered a living creature. Trying to get them to reproduce was a pipe dream to begin with. However, Shin Mang found that Uncle Lee's progress was quite good, even managing to make the zombies show reactions to the opposite sex. This was truly a breakthrough. It was worth a try. Keep an eye on Uncle Lee's side from now on. Whatever crystal cores or resources the experiments need, the train will cover it. Don't let him pay out of his own pocket. The train isn't short on that little bit. Even though the probability of success isn't high. But the train is developing. This thriving atmosphere is exactly what I want to see. At least everyone has motivation, everyone has their own goals, and everyone wants the train to get better. If everyone is lethargic, then this train is no different from being on the verge of collapse, which means everyone has become completely pessimistic about the future. Having ideas is a good thing. Don't restrict the ideas of the people below too much. In the apocalypse, there are no absolutely correct answers. Restricting too much will only stifle imagination. Win or lose, just keep trying. Encourage them more. You get me? Understood. Lao Zhu nodded seriously. Boss Mang, don't worry. I know what to do. Yeah. All right, you can go. After Lao Zhu left, Chen Mang turned to look at the train's control panel screen. We have enough iron ore. Let's upgrade then. Armor first. Immediately, in car number 3, countless blocks of iron ore stored in the freezer shattered, turning into specks of white light that flooded the cabin. In an instant, the iron ore in several freezers was completely wiped out. 16 million units of iron ore vanished just like that. After consuming 16 million units of iron ore, the train's armor finally reached level 13. Level 13 armor. In the entire green zone of the Valley of Peril, it's absolutely one of a kind. Chen Mang nodded in satisfaction, feeling a lot more secure. Still, it'd be even better if I had level 14 armor. But that's not happening anytime soon. I don't have enough iron ore right now. Once the train's capacity expansion is done, he'd still prioritize upgrading the armor. Back in the green zone, most people's firepower accessories were only blue or yellow quality. The highest they could upgrade was level 5 or 8. His armor was completely dominant. But now, in the Valley of Peril, almost everyone has red quality accessories that can be upgraded past level 10. This made him lose that sense of security. Compared to upgrading armor, the cost of upgrading those firepower accessories is much lower. Chen Mang glanced at his iron ore balance. 9.01 million units left. Let's see if we can find a level 4 iron mine tonight. The cosmic receiver has already started generating level 4 iron ore. As for the newly manufactured regular train cars, he just devoured them directly. The accompanying level 100 saw blade fragments were all collected and placed in the control room's freezer, saved as materials for the next Myriad Swords release. This move, never mind the power, the visual effect alone is badass enough. More importantly, other train captains simply can't pull it off. This is his unique trump card. As for the 1,200 newly taken-in survivors, after taking them in, the train's population directly exceeded 6,500, skyrocketing once again. Honestly, the train isn't lacking mining manpower right now. As the level of iron ore gets higher, a single mine doesn't even need that many people to yield a massive amount of ore. What determines the output now isn't the number of survivors, but the number of mines. Even so, he took them all in anyway. According to his plan, he'd need a lot of personnel to maintain Neon City in the future. The old rule, starve them in the freezer for 3 days first, then figure it out. For the train, feeding another 1,000 mouths isn't a huge burden. But for the people at the bottom, this means their path to promotion has narrowed significantly. The initial batch of residents with ID numbers in the 1000s got promoted so fast that they just had to wake up and mine every day to see themselves moving up. But for the residents with IDs past 4000, it's truly a case of too many wolves and not enough meat. There simply isn't much or for you to mine. The good news is, rest time is longer. The bad news is, the path to promotion seems completely blocked. Time to sleep. Chen Mang stood up, stretched his muscles, and went to the freezer bathroom next door to wash up. Then, wrapping a towel around himself, he walked to the edge of the bed to sleep, while that kid slept on the chair. He hadn't slept in a long time. His body really couldn't take it anymore. Before sleeping, he instructed Xiao AI one last time. If you really can't find a level 4 iron mine, a level 3 one is fine too. We have to start working at dawn. Lao Zhu walked to entertainment car number 10 and looked toward the brightly lit film production area. People were bustling in and out, and occasional clamor could be heard. After hesitating for a moment, he pushed the door open and walked in. It was already late, but they were still filming inside. Many people were wearing various suits. Looks like they've started shifting to modern setting films. Captain Zhu, you're here. Zhang Yiren ran over excitedly as soon as he saw him. Your advice last time helped me a lot. This time, I'm shooting a movie with absolutely no 18+ scenes. It focuses entirely on the plot. It's roughly about a rich second-generation kid who causes a fatal hit and run, but gets away with it because of his immense power and influence. In the final trial, his family hires a lawyer with a 100% win rate for him. Then, the victim's family member disguises themselves as the lawyer, and gets the male lead to confess all the details of his crime himself. After the victim's family member leaves, the male lead hears the doorbell ring. He opens the door, only to find that the person standing outside is his actual lawyer. The whole process is full of constant plot twists and endless climaxes. It also tells the story of how the lower class can still rise up and rebel against the overwhelmingly powerful upper class, ultimately achieving victory and trampling those so-called elites underfoot. The whole movie is filled with positive themes of rebellion, struggle, and fearlessness against tyranny. Lao Zhu spat expressionlessly, then smacked Zhang Yiren hard on the forehead. Rebellion? Struggle? Fearlessness against tyranny? You actually have the fucking balls to shoot that. Rebel against who? Struggle against who? Do you want me to invite Boss Mang to play the villain in your movie? This topic is so sensitive that dragging you out and shooting you right now wouldn't even be an injustice. If you're going to make movies, make them properly. Stop thinking about elevating the artistic value all day long. Boss Mang told me not to interfere too much with the ideas of the people below. You just shoot whatever you want. You don't need to listen to my advice. Just go back to shooting that original monster beating scene. This one is definitely a no-go. Value your own life a little. You're not a cat. You don't have 9 lives. With that, Lao Zhu strode out of the film production area, leaving Zhang Yiren standing there dumbfounded. A long while later, Zhang Yiren looked at the newly written script in his hands, finally snapping out of it. A movie with this kind of class conflict. Yeah, he really couldn't shoot it. The class divide on the train is so clear-cut. Who would they be opposing? Scared the crap out of me. Thank God I haven't started shooting yet. If he shot it, and someone actually yelled rebel or struggle, both his head and that guy's head would definitely roll. Better stick to shooting monster-beating flicks. Sure, it's a bit vulgar, but the masses love it, and it's safe. No risk of losing his head. Change the script. Wardrobe team, come take back the clothes for that last script. We're going back to the old one. Uncle Lee. Lao Zhu stood in livestock car number 15, smiling at Uncle Lee, his voice full of emotion. Today, Boss Mang officially gave his approval for your zombie monster cage experiment. He even praised you highly. From now on, the train will provide all the resources you need for your experiment. If you need anything from now on, just go straight to the resident store and get it. If they don't have it, contact me directly. I've also brought the person you asked for. He trembled as he pulled open a refrigerator, and a man with terrified eyes rolled out. Moreover, Old Zhu looked at Li Shu with a meaningful smile. Meng Jiao made it very clear. As long as the zombie cage experiment succeeds, you'll receive Tier 1 high-level talent treatment from now on. Currently, only 3 people on the Hengxing Hao enjoy this treatment. I also put in a lot of good words for you in front of Meng Jia. Understood. Li Shu stood up straight, trembling with excitement. I definitely won't disappoint Meng Jia and the Hengxing Hao. And thank you so much, Captain Zhu, for speaking up for me in front of Meng Jia. Words can't express my gratitude for this favor. Just watch my performance from now on. Keep it up. I've thought highly of you from the very beginning. You know that. When I refused to let you be a teacher before, I wasn't trying to make things difficult for you. I just felt that being a teacher would be a waste of your talents. I understand, Captain Zhu. All right, you get back to work. I'll be going now. Take care, Captain Zhu. After Old Zhu left, Li Shu stood frozen in place, taking a deep breath. It took him a long time to calm down. His hands trembled as he lit a cigarette and brought it to his lips. His eyes were red, his voice hoarse. See that? I finally made it. Tier 1 high-level talent treatment. That's even higher than Li Shurji. I said it a long time ago. Even if I'm just raising pigs, I can raise them to the absolute peak. Just give me a platform, no matter what it is, and I can produce results. This is what I'm capable of. Meng Jia has seen all the hard work we've put in all this time. The young man following Li Shu lowered his voice. Meng Jia only made a promise. You haven't actually achieved anything yet. It's a bit too early to pop the champagne. You don't understand. Li Shu shook his head, his eyes slightly red. At first, I had absolutely no clue. I just felt like I had to do something. I fumbled around for a long time before coming up with this zombie cage idea, but I didn't even know if it was right, or if it would actually be useful to the train. Back then, I was just paying out of my own pocket to do it. But now it's different. Meng Jia has validated my idea. Didn't you hear what Captain Zhu said? Meng Jia gave me high praise and validation. That means the path I'm on is the right one. In your eyes, this is just a promise. But in my eyes, this is Meng Jia acknowledging everything I've sacrificed all this time, and telling me that this path is right, not wrong, and to keep moving forward with determination. Those are two completely different things. Phew. Li Shu took a deep breath, wiped his teary eyes with his sleeve, and then pointed at the man tied up tightly on the ground next to him. Tie him to the pillar first. We'll continue the experiment tonight. No, I'll talk. I'll tell you everything. Xinjia, tied to the pillar with a face full of terror, screamed himself hoarse as he watched Li Shu approach him with a sharp knife. Don't come over here. I'll talk, okay? I'll talk. Oh. Li Shu hesitated and stopped, looking at him. What do you want to say? I don't know what to say. Xinjia was on the verge of a breakdown. You guys haven't even asked me anything. Just ask, and I'll tell you. Hold on. Li Shu turned to the young man beside him. Go ask if Meng Jia wants to interrogate this guy about anything. Got it. A minute later, the young man returned and shook his head. I asked AI Zong. AI Zong said there's nothing. Meng Jia has never even met this guy. Just use him however you want. Understood. Li Shu's expression was a bit strange as he turned to look at Xinjia. I thought you knew some big secret. Bear with it a little, this is going to hurt. Right after that, a blood-curdling scream echoed inside the refrigerator. Quick, take him and connect him to that zombie. Understood, Li Shu. Xinjia was tied to the pillar, his entire body trembling from the excruciating pain. At this moment, he desperately wanted to pass out, but that demon-like man in front of him had injected him with some unknown drug. It made his mind abnormally clear, making it completely impossible to faint. The horrific pain was tormenting every nerve. Right now, he was filled with immense regret. He regretted running off to be the leader back then, and he regretted pressing eject immediately instead of self-destruct immediately. He regretted that when he self-destructed in the refrigerator, he only blew up the special items and not himself along with them. He had thought the other party captured him alive to extract intelligence. After all, he was a level 12 mechanical train captain. He definitely knew quite a few secrets. But from beginning to end, he had never met Meng Jia, nor had anyone interrogated him. He had even planned to play tough, revealing half-truths to exchange for a chance to survive, but the script was completely different. Could it be that Meng Jia wasn't the least bit curious about the fortuitous encounter that helped him rise to a level 12 mechanical train? The entire Crisis Valley knew he had been hunted down, fled here, and then rose to power thanks to a massive stroke of luck. Was Meng Jia really not curious about what that stroke of luck was? Especially when he saw the zombies chained up nearby with iron chains, his heart was filled with despair. It was the first time he had ever seen someone raising zombies on a train. Compared to this, that 100-square-meter refrigerator suddenly seemed terrifyingly normal, especially when he felt his own being, In livestock carriage number 15, Li Shu narrowed his eyes slightly, crossing his arms as he looked at the zombies in front of him. AI Zone just sent me some high-level intelligence that the train recently acquired. It proves that my research direction all this time hasn't been wrong. Zombies cannot reproduce in the normal way, but the planetary will can be tricked, meaning we can use the form of reproduction to deceive the planetary will, causing core energy to overflow at a designated location, then crafting it into a zombie, born through reproduction. The core energy inside a zombie's body is much lower than a single unit of level for iron ore. That means we need a production line where a massive number of zombies are generated at every single moment. Then, we connect it to a zombie grinder, a converter, and the corresponding storage tanks, and we're done. No wonder Meng Jia values my plan so highly. If this plan succeeds, it will definitely leave a profound mark in the entire developmental history of the Hengxing Hao. A mark of me, Li Shu, for future generations to praise. This is a monumental achievement, no less than Captain Zhu's founding contributions. Whether I make a name for myself or not all depends on this. Hey kid, you're very lucky. The train you're on is about to take off. Are you talking about the Hengxing Hao? I'm talking about me. Didn't you say last time that I was your train? Oh, right. Go for it, Li Shu. You're the best. The young man looked at Li Shu with a serious yet admiring expression, giving him a thumbs up. Xinjia, tied to the pillar, looked at the two people in front of him with eyes full of despair and agony. Things like planetary will or core energy, he didn't quite understand, but he could roughly guess that he was very likely one of the main experimental materials for this plan. The good news was that he wouldn't die anytime soon. The bad news was, he'd be better off dead. Morning came. Yesterday was a peaceful night. The Hungxinghao was parked on the plains of Crisis Valley, next to two level 3 iron ore mines. The residents had already started swinging their pickaxes to work. Only everyone's faces showed anxiety, swinging so fast the pickaxes seemed about to fly out of their hands. There were too many residents and too few mines. If they didn't hurry up and dig, there simply wouldn't be enough. In a situation with so many wolves and so little meat, internal competition was inevitable. Yawn. Chun Mang stretched comfortably, crawled out of bed, went to the refrigerator to wash his face, then lit a cigarette and sat down in his chair to check today's train log. This was almost his fixed daily routine. Wake up, have a morning smoke, then check the log to see what happened last night while he was asleep. The log was very detailed. Just like every day, the residents had started working. A squad of guards and 80 armed robots were patrolling the area, preventing monsters from approaching. The remaining guards were doing their daily tasks in the virtual combat training space. A portion of steamed rice rolls appeared on the table, placed there by Xiao Fong. Everything was pretty much the same as yesterday. This stable and somewhat dull life would have been very boring before the apocalypse, but in the context of the apocalypse, it brought an indescribable sense of reassurance. Stability wasn't just dull, it was peace of mind. Pretty good. Chun Mang casually ate a few bites of the rice rolls and set them aside. He was starting to get sick of this dish too. The food on the train was still limited. He needed to consider adding more production lines to diversify the options. Looking out the window, the weather today was quite nice. The sky was clear, and the cold was mixed with a hint of warmth. He casually scooped up the soundly sleeping Zilu beside him into his arms and stroked it a few times. I have to say it's so soft. It feels really comfortable to hold, making you want to pet it even more. A starry sky behemoth? He lifted Xiao Lu up, observed it carefully, and muttered to himself. It really doesn't look anything like a starry sky behemoth. I wonder what it'll look like when it grows up. Once the train reaches level 12, this little guy might wake up. At that point, it won't just eat unconsciously anymore. He'll have to actively feed it. I hope it doesn't consume too many of my resources. Then he checked his iron ore balance. There were 9.01 million units left. Once these two level 3 mines are fully excavated, I should be able to expand the train. Time passed slowly. Nothing special happened that day. Chun Mang was quite lazy, sitting in the control room basking in the sun and watching movies all day. They were all old movies. He had basically watched all the ones he collected last time, so now he was rewatching them. Getting tired of watching, he took a stroll through a few other carriages. He went to carriage number 5 and made some hamburgers for a while to unwind. He went to carriage number 7 and chatted with old Zhu, Biao Zi, and the others for a bit. Then he headed to carriage number 10 and looked at the undeveloped entertainment area. He pondered for a moment and decided to use the mechanical heart later to build an amusement park for everyone, like a roller coaster. It didn't matter if others played or not. He wanted to play. He had wanted to try it since he was a kid, but being an orphan, no one ever took him. When he grew up, he was too embarrassed to go on his own. Such a small thing had become a regret of his past life. In this life, he definitely had to make up for it. He also checked the filming progress in the movie production area and casually asked a few questions. Finally, he arrived at carriage number 11. Under De Ba's proud guidance, he inspected the Goblin tribe's territory. Although it was still crude, it was starting to take shape. He asked about Menduo's progress and learned that the guy was still out trading and hadn't returned yet. On his way back to the control room, passing by carriage number 5, he played Phoenix Pecking Rice for a little while longer. It was getting close to evening. The two level 3 iron ore mines were basically almost fully excavated. With nearly 6,000 residents digging together, the efficiency was astonishingly fast. It's just that they also went through quite a lot of bandages. Many residents got hit by others swinging their pickaxes on their bodies, legs, or heads. Fortunately, everyone usually ate a lot of bread and cola, so their overall constitution was pretty good. Otherwise, there probably would have been a funeral tonight. Phew. It was completely dark now. Standing in the control room, Chen Meng watched everyone packing up their work outside and muttered with a satisfied smile. What a fulfilling day. Being a captain isn't easy at all. I have to worry about everything. Generally, the number of slaves on each train wasn't high. The train with the most slaves he had ever seen was Shenjia's, and even that only had a little over 1,200 people. When the number of slaves is small, efficiency can double, but when the number is too large, the increase drops significantly. His train was probably the one with the most survivors in the entire blue zone. But looking at the entire planet, there were definitely still many trains stronger than his. After all, there were a total of 50 million mechanical trains. Right at that moment, a flash of white light suddenly appeared inside the train, followed by Xiao AI's voice. Captain. Yeah? Today, you patrolled almost the entire train. When you passed by carriage number 14, you even stood in the corridor and stared at that earth-shattering missile for a long time. So what? Is there a problem? Doesn't a missile sitting quietly in a train carriage look badass? What's wrong with looking at it a little longer? Nothing. But Captain, you passed by carriage number 2 twice today, yet you never once thought of coming into the Armor Research Center to take a look at me. Chen Meng's mouth twitched slightly. He immediately grabbed his cane nearby, stood up, and headed toward carriage number 2, which connected to the control room. I'm going to take a look right now. Was it because he had upgraded the train's AI assistant too high? After upgrading the AI to level 100 last time, her cognitive abilities seemed to have grown much stronger. Very quickly, Chen Meng pushed the door open and walked in. On the two screens to the left and right of Xiao AI, the words proud and boastful appeared respectively, her face full of pride. She was standing next to a piece of equipment he had never seen before. What is this equipment? He shifted his gaze away from Xiao AI, examining the device from top to bottom. This thing looked like a giant meat grinder, ridiculously huge. It was a cylinder with a diameter of about 10 meters, made entirely of steel, with only one side made of glass to clearly see the internal structure. In the middle of the cylinder was a steel pipe, embedded with countless shredder blades. These blades were all level 100. Saying they could slice through iron like mud wouldn't be an exaggeration at all. Clearly, once this device started up, anything that fell into it would be ground into mush. What do you think? Xiao AI introduced it with immense pride. This is the result of her spending a full 22 hours, from last night until today, to complete. Last night, based on the data in the database, she conducted a simple deduction. Li Shu's zombie production cage plan has a success rate of about 0.9%. The information in the database told her that this was almost impossible. But even so, she still decided to build this meat grinder as the subsequent processing equipment for the zombie production cage. It can grind all the generated zombies into minced meat. Furthermore, she connected this meat grinder to the red cosmic collector device via a piping system. This machine doesn't just grind. There's also a giant piston on top, like a syringe. When a batch of zombies is done being ground, the piston will press down hard, extracting all the core energy from the zombies' bodies. It channels that energy through the pipes into the cosmic collector, which is then converted into iron ore and materialized at the spatial portal opposite it. Everything on her end is fully prepared. As soon as Li Shu's zombie production cage is finished, it can be started up immediately. Not bad. Hearing Xiao AI's introduction, Chen Meng was a bit surprised. Not needing to sleep really is an advantage. You finished a giant meat grinder like this in just one day? Such a massive piece of equipment, and you did it all by yourself? What kind of superhuman are you? Of course it wasn't just me. Xiao AI shook her head. Right after that, over a dozen robots crawled out of the meat grinder one by one, and dozens more poked their heads out from behind the cosmic collector. A few others that were modifying armor also stood up from the scaffolding nearby. A total of 198 robots. The batch of robots brought back from 70,000 meters underground last time had some damaged ones. She dismantled the parts, reassembled them, and finally managed to repair 197 robots. Plus her original robot. That makes exactly 198. What's the power source for this equipment? It connects through the electrical circuit system and the generator, consuming origin energy stones. Where's the motor? I took it from the off-road motorcycle. I remember that accessory hasn't been upgraded yet. It's only level 1. The rotation speed isn't fast enough, right? It's a bit lacking, but it's usable for now. Chun Meng shook his head and directly consumed 175,000 units of iron ore. He upgraded the yellow quality accessory, the off-road motorcycle production line, to level 20 before speaking again. I just upgraded it to level 20. The rotation speed should be enough now. You can go swap it out later. What's that mech's suit under the scaffolding? The level of Biao Zi and the others' mechs is a bit low. They're no longer sufficient for the blue zone. Biao Zi's current constitution isn't strong enough to use the Thunder mech. I'm modifying it over there, welding a higher-level suit of armor for him. One more thing, Captain. We brought back a lot of robots last time. I dismantled and analyzed them. I finally found the circuit board that allows an AI to parasitize it. I can go with you to Neon City now. Oh, Chen Meng raised an eyebrow. This was indeed good news. With your super network infiltration abilities, we can enter quite a few restricted areas in Neon City. But if you leave the train, when the train is attacked, can you still execute counterattacks according to preset commands? I can. If I were level 10, I couldn't. But at level 100, I can absolutely split my consciousness. The main AI body will remain on the train to handle defense and counterattacks. Prepare a bit over the next few days. We'll head out in a few days and go to Neon City again. Understood. Chen Meng returned to the control room, sat down in his chair, and let out a sigh. Xiao AI had thrown way too much information at him all at once. This girl is becoming more and more like a human. She even knows how to demand credit now. If it were before, when her level was still low, all this would have been relayed directly through the control room speakers, rather than her complaining about him not visiting her. The 2 level 3 iron ore mines had been completely excavated. The total resources on the train reached 14.215 million units of iron ore. The level 100 solar panels were enough to cover the train's entire daily consumption, and on top of that, there was a surplus of about 180,000 units of iron ore every day. Currently, the train had 14 carriages and 1 locomotive. The expansion cost was 14 million units. Chen Meng didn't hesitate. He directly pressed Expand Train and adjusted the parameters for each carriage, 10 meters wide, 30 meters long, and 10 meters high. The next moment, a prompt appeared on the control panel screen. Train expansion will proceed after the countdown ends. Prior to this, please ensure everyone has evacuated the train to avoid accidents. The timer displayed 29 minutes and 59 seconds. Have to leave the train? Chen Meng didn't say much. He grabbed his cane nearby, picked up Xiao Lu, and left the control room. Right after that, all the screens in the train lit up simultaneously. An ear-piercing alarm echoed throughout the train, followed by Xiao AI's clear electronic voice. The train is about to undergo an upgrade. All residents are required to evacuate the train in an orderly manner. Residents of Zone 1 and Zone 2, evacuate first. Residents of the remaining carriages, stay in your residential areas and do not move without authorization. Even though there was a massive number of residents, when the hundreds of heavy machine guns on the ceiling began to slowly rotate as if searching for targets, everyone immediately and obediently complied. The level 100,000 internal fire control system might not seem like much, but in reality, it was extremely effective. Without these guns, the residents definitely wouldn't be this orderly. The train was too small, and the doors were too narrow. Over 6,000 people moving through the cramped carriages. Just taking a trip to the resident store and back was enough to make you break a sweat. Expanding early was definitely the right decision. Very quickly, all the residents on the train, including the creatures in the livestock carriage, were brought down. At this moment, there wasn't a single living soul left on the Hengxing Hao. Everyone stood from a distance, looking toward the train. On the outside was a defense line set up by the armed robots and guards. Li Shu, who was using chains to lead cows, sheep, pigs, and even a man along with a large number of zombies, instantly became the center of attention. Many residents looked at him curiously. Quite a few newcomers had never seen Li Shu, while the older residents still remembered the time he used to record Hengxing vouchers for them, even though he quickly became unemployed after that. When all the residents had evacuated the train, the countdown was also nearing its end. Right as the timer hit 0, a deep clunk echoed from the locomotive. Following that, countless specks of white light surged out from carriage number 2. seeping into the train's hull. Before everyone's astonished eyes, the entire Hungxinghao began to transform. The steel blocks seemed to be granted life. The thick, heavy armor turned into a viscous liquid state, continuously stretching and spreading through the air. The entire train expanded at a visible rate, wider, longer, and taller. Even the wind and fire wheels spread outward in all four directions, increasing in size accordingly. The entire process lasted exactly 3 minutes. 3 minutes later, under the dizzying gazes of all the residents, the Hungxinghao had completely metamorphosed. Each carriage was 10 meters wide, 30 meters long, and 10 meters high. The locomotive was 10 meters wide and 21 meters long. 14 carriages plus one locomotive brought the total length to 441 meters, not to mention the flexible gaps between the carriages, which made the actual length even greater. The most important thing was the 10-meter height, equivalent to a 3-story building. Looking from afar, this was a giant mechanical dragon reigning over the plains. The 10 level 24 Doomsday machine guns looked ferocious, but placed on the train's hull, they looked like toys, their intimidating presence significantly reduced. Chen Meng looked at the scene before him with a satisfied smile, his sense of gratification reaching its peak. This was the Doomsday train he had built over the past few months since transmigrating to this world. It was his greatest reliance. He gripped his cane tightly, opened the carriage customization menu, consumed 60,000 units of iron ore, and spray-painted 3 massive characters onto the pitch-black hull. Hungxinghao. The character Hung was on carriage number 3, Xing on carriage number 6, and Hao on carriage number 9. Each character was incredibly huge. Even from very far away, those 3 characters could be seen clearly. They were on both sides of the hull. The price wasn't cheap at all, 60,000 units of iron, or just to buy spray paint for letters. No wonder rarely anyone used this function. But right now, Chen Meng wanted to do it. He wanted to spend 60,000 iron or to officially give his train a name, a title that belonged to it.